Mic check. Mic check. I am live. I am live. I should probably set the setting in down here in order for it to actually fit like kind of like a more calming night atmosphere. Give me a second, I'll be right back. There we go. Lights are off. Got a nice calming background. All we need now is the ASMR music. This is my first ASMR stream, so I forgive if I'm doing anything wrong. But also, fuck you. ASMR music. I'm gonna assume it's like non-copyright ones. I'll do this one. I'll do Sleep Super Smooth from Sleep Tube Hypnotic Relaxation. That's not very, Also, I'm gonna be getting close to my mic a lot, so my mouth is probably going to be fucking up. But that's okay. I wonder if it's possible to hear that. I don't want it too loud, because if it's too loud, then I can't really... If it's too loud, then it talks over my voice. I kind of just want it in the background. Anyway, hello everyone. My name is Green. The green is Emerald. And we're here for a chill stream today. I don't really know how this is going to go, but I'm going to read a bunch of stories that I grew up with and found around my house, as well as one that that me and my friends recently bought over at a dollar store. And yeah, I guess I'll get started, and you can I'll maybe put I hope my voice is calm enough that I can get some of you to sleep. Not because I want you to be bored, but that's kind of like what these storytelling ASMRs are about. So let me go get the books that Which one should I start with? I guess I'll start with the one that me and my friends bought. It's called How to Be a Pregnant Father. And I know that's a conundrum because fathers can't be pregnant. But although I looked into this book a tiny little bit, I didn't actually read it, but I know that it's actually not about being a pregnant father. It's about how to be a father while your wife is pregnant. And it's not a children's book as I thought it was going to be. So this is the only one that's not. Let me just calibrate my model. Okay, now we're all set. An Illustrated Survival Guide for the First-Time Father by Peter Mayle, illustrated by Arthur Robbins, including the Pregnant Father's Cockroach, I said, it's not cockroach, it's cookbook, by Len Dighton. I can't read, and now I'm going to be reading to all of you. So this is going to get very good. I have my chocolate milk, and I'm ready to begin. Congratulations. Unless you're reading this book under false pretenses, you have just become a pregnant father, but not actually pregnant, because that would defy biology. Traditionally, this is a time in a man's life when he becomes a rather uneasy background figure, hovering on the fringes of the great event. From time to time, catalogs of baby clothing and equipment may be thrust under his nose, or his opinion may occasionally be sought on the size and design of the crib or the baby carriage. But in between helping to conceive the child and giving out cigars at the other end of the process, very little attention has been paid to the man's side of pregnancy. And most definitely, there is a man's side. My VTuber model broke, god damn it. Try harder. Maybe I should turn the lights on. Maybe that'll help it. Yeah, why don't I go turn the lights on? I turned the lights off. You know, because that gave the calmer atmosphere. Oh, wait, there we go. Alright, where was I? Ah, yes. And most definitely, there is a man's side. For the first-time father, pregnancy can be a puzzling, tiring task, and sometimes hurtful, and a frequent strain on the patience and the digestion. The most unsettling fact to face is that your dear familiar wife will change. She will change not only in shape, but also in disposition. She will be subject to uncharacteristic moods and fancies, often following one another with confusing speed. She smiles, she weeps, she feels ravenous, or bilious. She wants company, she wants solitude, all in the course of the same day, and quite possibly even before lunchtime. You, sir, have months of this to cope with, whether you have a good pregnancy or a miserable one. It largely depends on your attitude. If you're prepared to become a player in this 9-month event rather than just a spectator, you will enjoy it. Furthermore, you'll make things a lot easier for your wife. This book is based on the assumption that you actually want to join in, and the best time to do that is at the very beginning. The most crucial period in setting the mood of your pregnancy is now. Your behavior during these first few pregnant weeks is vital. This, unfortunately, is a problem, because once the initial excitement has died down, the chances that you'll start to worry. Can we afford it? Do we need somewhere bigger to live? Supposing it's twins. What happens to the vacation we planned? I should probably put the book that I'm reading on stream. Not the actual book itself, but at least the cover, so people know what we're reading. Why don't I go take care of that after I finish this little section? What happens to the vacation we've planned? Will we have to get rid of our sports car? Will we have to get rid of our sex life? Complications, hospitals, doctor's bills, midnight feedings, no more lazy Sunday mornings, no more freedoms, no more parties, panic, help. Calm down. These are the worries that beset almost every pregnant father, and you will find that they can be resolved quite comfortably over the next 9 months. In the meantime, your wife needs all the attention you can give her. She, after all, is trying to get used to the idea of carrying a small human being inside of her, which is indefinitely more unsettling experience than anything you think you're going through. So in these early stages, keep your neuroses to yourself. If you start worrying out loud, your wife's going to think you don't want the baby. And if she ever starts thinking that, you're both going to have a bad pregnancy. Of course, your wife may bring some of these things up herself. If she does, by all means, talk them over with her. But if all she wants to do for the first couple of weeks of pregnancy is talk about joys of parenthood, don't spoil it for her. You have 9 months to sort out the practical details. A few days dreaming about your genius offspring will do you both good. While you're still in that happy state of pre-parental euphoria, here are 1 or 2 simple and constructive things you can do to start off your pregnancy off on the right foot. Celebrate. There will be plenty of time for eating and drinking sensibly in the months ahead, but for one glorious evening, as early on in the pregnancy as possible, take your wife out for an extravagant dinner, buy her flowers, take taxis, have all the forbidden delights on the menu, have liqueurs, have fun, eat, drink, and be merry. For tomorrow, you diet, but on this self-indulgent night, enjoy the fact that you're both having a baby. That's sweet. She'd probably very much like that. That was not in the book, that was my own private thoughts. Learn about the inner woman. This part is part of the book. You'll find it useful and fascinating to find out exactly what's going on inside your wife's body. Stuff that you didn't already learn in health class. There are literally hundreds of books that describe, in loving detail, almost every minute of a woman's pregnancy. Your wife will probably have at least one of these books herself. Read it. Find out what happens to the mother month by month as the bump grows in her body. You'll discover that it's quite normal for a pregnant woman to have cramps or cravings, to feel occasionally nausea and irritability. It's not an unkind fate that has singled her out for special attention. It's life. God knows that's true. In this case, a little knowledge is a helpful thing. It is far easier to be sympathetic to your wife when you know what she's going through. But the main reason you should be speaking at... Excuse me, I had a burp. But the main reason that you should be on speaking terms with the mysteries of pregnancy is that it will make the whole business more interesting for you, the pregnant father. And let us not forget the purpose of this book is to make your pregnancy a happy one. Okay, now that I finished that section, let me go get a cover of the book, or at least an image of it, so I can show what we're reading on stream, so people know where we are if they decide to look back on it. We'll need like a couple pages in. I won't bother with a bookmark. First things I have to do, I have to subtract Streamlabs. But thankfully I already have the internet open. So now, what was it called again? How to be a pregnant father. Oh, shit, it's the first thing that comes up. How useful. Ah, here we go. Found the cover. Okay, now that I got the cover, I should probably get the covers of the other ones as well. I'll do that later. Alright, image source. I'm gonna add a new source. I'm gonna title it Book. Not that one. This one, I think. Here we go. Will this do? I think this will do. Let me get some chocolate milk. I'm thirsty. That's some good chocolate milk. God, what am I doing with my life? Okay. Now that I got the cover of the book on stream, and now that I had my chocolate milk, let's get back to where I was. As soon as I find where it is. Here we go. I found it. No need to worry. Okay. Are we ready? I wonder if I should read it in this more calming voice, or if I should read it in a whisper. Because frankly, I can do both. I don't care. I still wonder how long it'll take for me to read this book. Make every pregnant month count. Pregnancy provides you with a splendid opportunity to catch up on all kinds of things you've been meaning to do for ages. As the months go by, your social life will become progressively quieter. Unborn babies are not fond of late nights and parties. They find too much food or drink disagreeable, and if forced to endure a heavy evening, they take their revenge the following morning by making their mother feel dreadful. So you will find yourself with more free evenings than you've had for some time. This is the moment to go read the Gulag Archipelago instead of pretending you have, or to take up backgammon, as everyone else seems to have done so with smug proficiency. In fact, it doesn't really matter what you turn your hand to. Cooking, kung fu, model making, racehorse handicapping, dirty Scrabble, a VTuber. As long as you take up something that makes use of that time. Pregnant fathers fall into two distinct categories. Those who use their pregnancy as an excuse for idleness, and those who use it to accomplish something, even if it's only reading some long-neglected books. Invariably, those who use the pregnancy constructively had more fun and happier wives than those who vegetated. You know, it's funny that we talk about this now because we had something kind of similar worldwide with the pandemic, where a good portion of people, myself included, well, there were two kinds of people. There were the people that used the free time from COVID in order to just mess around and do nothing, or we have the ones that use the time from the virus to be constructive, make things that they haven't made before, or take up new hobbies. So we had a pretty similar situation not too long ago. How interesting. Okay, next segment. Don't neglect the outer woman. If you value your wife's well-being during this time, never forget that her basic feelings have not changed simply because her shape has. On the contrary, she's probably more sensitive now than ever before, particularly about your feelings toward her. Do you love her? Do you find her attractive? Then let her know. Give her flowers, buy her perfume, Notice her hair. Treat her, in other words, like the woman she is. Not like some strange creature who ceased to be feminine until she has hatched her egg. Naturally, you would never make such an elementary mistake. Or would you? Does she really feel happy and loved? If you're not sure, give her a kiss and one last glass of champagne before reading the next chapter. Okay, next segment. Kiss your breakfast goodbye. The early morning bathroom rush hour and the perils of public transportation. Your wife's body, which has hitherto been the exclusive property of your wife, is now being shared by a passenger. And one of the least pleasant side effects of this, and one of the least pleasant side effects of this often starts very early on in the pregnancy, long before any bumps or bulges appear. It is, of course, that special kind of awful feeling known as morning sickness. Unfortunately, as men have never experienced morning sickness, many of them are tempted to dismiss it as a display of feminine dramatics designed to attract sympathy and attention. They couldn't be more wrong. Morning sickness is a very real and inconvenient problem. Furthermore, it makes those women who suffer from where was I in the book? I shifted my position and now I can't find it anymore. God damn it. There we go. Furthermore, it makes those women who suffer from it not only feel ill, but frequently depressed as well. Let me get the microphone a little closer to me. Whatever you do, don't underestimate it. An example of how it actually feels comes from a woman whose hobbies are having babies and sailing small boats. She has considerable experience of both morning sickness and seasickness, and she claims that the two feelings are quite similar. God, my VTuber model camera just isn't working like this. There we go. So if you'd like some idea of what your wife is going through, go sailing and get seasick one weekend. You may feel a lot more sympathetic towards her condition once you've had a taste of something like it yourself. Don't let this all get you down. Normally, morning sickness only lasts for 2 to 3 months, and there is an even chance that your wife will go through the entire pregnancy without a single queasy moment. As you might expect in these computerized times, there is in existence a set of statistics telling us how many pregnant women suffer from morning sickness, and how many don't. According to this particular set of figures, 50% of mothers, why didn't they just do it like a symbol? 50% of mothers did find themselves diving uncontrollably for the nearest bathroom during pregnancy. The other half has no trouble at all. Let's hope your wife is one of the fortunate 50%. If she's not, and you'll know within the first couple of months, you must be prepared to take some rather unusual precautions. In very severe cases, the only sensible thing to do is to go and see your doctor. But if it's just normally awful, you may find the following hints are of some help. As he proceeds to not put the hints on this page, but probably on the next page. Okay. They're split into 3 sections that cover homesickness, traveling sickness, and away sickness at various times, because despite the name, morning sickness is not necessarily confined to morning. At home, it's normally for morning sickness, like charity, to begin at home, and what often sets it off is the sight and smell of fried eggs, sausages, and bacon. If you feel unable to face the world without fried breakfast, you would be wise to learn to cook it yourself, and be prepared to eat alone. Even the bravest pregnant stomach may find that kind of onslaught difficult to take first thing in the morning. A much more sympathetic alternative is to change your breakfast menu. Try, for instance, grapefruit, toast, and a boiled egg. Something like that is easy to prepare, less offensive to the pregnant disposition, and much better for you than all that fried stuff anyway. The kitchen is not only a place where you have to change your early morning habits. As you can imagine, many battles in the war against morning sickness are fought in the bathroom. Here, the great thing is to be in readiness at all times for instant retreat. If you're having a leisurely shave and there's a frantic hammering on the door, it's no use asking your wife to wait until you're finished. She can't. The consequences of keeping her waiting are too ghastly to discuss. So be on your toes, and when the moment comes, take prompt evasive action. One last thought before we leave the bathroom. Unless your wife specifically asks you to stay with her, make yourself scarce when she is coming to terms with her stomach. Being sick is a messy and unattractive business, and most women prefer to do it in private. Which I thought would be common information, common sense even, but apparently it's not, and that's why people need a book to tell them that. Okay. That's a very unflattering image, and I've never seen a cigar do that. That's not a cigar, that's a cigarette. At least I think it's a cigarette. I don't really know. I can't tell if that's a cigarette or a cigar at this point. I'm gonna go with cigarette. Traveling. There's no need to stay rooted at home throughout your pregnancy, but it's wrong to assume that you can travel about freely as soon as the morning is over. Morning sickness has been known to happen in a mid-afternoon traffic jam at 57th Street and Park Avenue with spectacular results. You just can't be too careful. Preferably, you should avoid public transportation. Much as they might want to help, bus and train drivers can't make unscheduled stops to accommodate the demands of an uneasy stomach. And taxi drivers, faced with the prospect of a passenger about to throw up, are likely to be more concerned with their upholstery than your wife's discomfort. But what if, like the most of us, she has to use the public transportation? She probably won't be allowed to take travel sickness pills. She can't predict when she's going to feel ill. She can't ask the driver to stop. No, there's only one answer. But it does provide a small measure of comfort, and it can be taken everywhere, even to the movies. It is the regulation airplane sick bag, complete with a sealable top. This won't stop your wife from feeling sick, or indeed, from being sick. But it does mean that she has something to be sick in. Also, she can remove all traces of the catastrophe for discreet disposal later on. Pregnant women who have tried this simple device have found it surprisingly comforting and say that it does help to reduce the panic that often accompanies sickness in a public place. As for the receptacle itself, the airline bags are best. Airlines, after all, have them well made, and we never heard of one failing yet. Ask your traveling friends to bring some back for you whenever they fly, or write to the public relations officer of an airline and ask him for a supply. Of course, if you're lucky enough never to have to use public transportation, the problem is lessened considerably. You can usually pull in to the side of the road. Nevertheless, we still recommend a supply of airline bags in the glove compartment, just in case. Without going into details of the unpleasant episode in the traffic jam on the corner of the 57th and the park, suffice to say there is one airline bag, accurately used, would have saved a great deal of embarrassment all round. What a heart-throbbing tale. God, I have something in my throat. I can't cough too loud because that kind of ruins the ASMR part of the stream. That's a little annoying. Okay, moving on. How much of this book is left? Oh dear, I have a lot of this book left. I don't know if I'll get through it all today. I might. Who knows? In other people's homes. When you, your wife, and her delicate disposition go visiting, all three of you will have a better time if you prepare the ground first. This is definitely a job for you, rather than your wife. She probably dislikes me making a fuss and would prefer to keep quiet and hope for the best. Courageous though this is, it's a courting disaster. Consider, for example, a small dinner party at your friend's house. Supposing your wife has served something that makes her feel ill on sight. Supposing she's being seated in a corner where she has to clamber over two other guests and a potted plant to get away from the table. Supposing she's not exactly sure where the bathroom is. The possibilities are enough to make you lose your appetite completely. However, these horrors can be avoided with the help of a few words from you. Presumably, your friend will know that your wife's expecting a baby. You should warn them well in advance that she's also expecting to feel ill from time to time. With luck, they will then ask you if there's any kind of food your wife can't face eating. If they don't ask, tell them. Otherwise, you might be one guest short for the evening. A seemingly harmless bowl of spaghetti once caused a pregnant guest to barricade herself in the bathroom for 2.5 hours. The other guests, with embarrassing courtesy, delayed starting their meal until the lady emerged. The evening was not a success. Shit, that sounds awful. Seating is almost as important as eating. Ideally, your wife should be placed as far away from the kitchen smells as possible, with a clear avenue of escape to the bathroom. If there's some fresh air around, she should be near that. She should be near that as well. Finally, both of you should know the way to the bathroom before you sit down, and find out about any small peculiarities it may have, such as cunningly concealed lavatories or obscurely placed light switches. The middle of a crisis is no time to be fumbling around in the dark. Having done your homework, you can relax. You've done all you can. From now on, you're in the lap of the gods. Yes, we are. Oh dear God. What is this picture? It looks normal enough until you look at what's on the table. Dear God. I need some more chocolate milk. Okay. Cravings. In which we discover that an insane desire for a peanut butter, pickle, and a Hershey bar sandwich on a date nut bread is absolutely nothing to be alarmed about. Having tiptoed through the delicate ordeal of morning sickness, you may be tempted to breathe a sigh of relief and look forward to a return to normality at mealtimes. Don't sigh too soon. It's quite possible that your wife's appetites will undergo a complete change. Instead of feeling fate at the sight of a boiled egg, she may begin to consume, with great relish, a curious mixture of foods that would make a strong man recoil. This doesn't happen to all pregnant women. Your wife could go through the entire pregnancy with nothing more exotic than a lamb chop passing her lips. However, you should be prepared for the alternative, a desperate, almost addictive desire for some truly extraordinary flavor combinations. These gastronomic adventures are called cravings. Why should they happen to some women and not to others? Why should they happen at all? Medical science offers no precise answers, so we'll try to provide our own. It seems reasonable to assume that cravings occur as a result of the changes taking place in one of these two broad areas. Physical. There are cases when a woman's everyday diet is not sufficiently balanced to meet the nutritional demands of pregnancy. She and the unborn baby may not be getting enough certain vitamins, minerals, or protein. So the body adjusts and translates the need for the missing fuel into an appetite for foods that will correct the deficiency. This is rare. In an age of multivitamin tablets, balanced diets, and excellent medical supervision, it is far more likely that the cause will be emotional. Cravings are so varied and unpredictable that it's impossible to forecast the form they will take. One woman's french fries and pineapple chunks might be another woman's tuna fish and cheesecake. Putting aside the ingredients for a moment and assuming that the cravings is not at all based on the physical need, what is it that makes a normal woman with a normal appetite go suddenly bananas in the kitchen? The answer is that, consciously or subconsciously, she's trying to tell you something. It may be, or all, of the following. As it shows a picture of a burger with a ginormous sausage, don't take that out of context, a fish which seems to still be alive, what looks to be cream cheese, pickles, lettuce, and cheese that does not look right. Am I concerned? Yes. Yes, I am. Okay. I should not linger too far on these because I still have some other books to get through. I'm worried. Wait, I think I missed a segment. No, I did not. Oh, I see. Having a baby, particularly the first one, can be a disturbing experience. Physical and emotional changes are taking place in your wife, and since you're not going through them yourself, it's difficult for you to share them. Sympathetic as you may be, you're in a position of a spectator, and she has to cope with these changes pretty much alone. Frequently, this will make her anxious. You'd be anxious too, if you were in her shoes. As you know, one of the most common reactions to anxiety is to head for the welcoming shelves of the icebox and take comfort in food. I'm not attractive, in quotation marks. As your wife changes in shape, she might well feel less and less sexually attractive. Gone, for the moment, is the sylph-like figure. As the months stretch ahead of her, so does the ever-expanding stomach, and she thinks that the possibility of a less attentive husband. If she has the slightest reason to believe these misgivings, she might come to the conclusion that she's not going to be sexy. She might as well be full. Bring on the ice cream, the candies, the chocolate cake, and the desserts. Bring on the pasta and potatoes and bread. Let's joy and the waistline be unconfined. This, of course, will probably produce exactly the effect she was worried about in the first place. But it happens. I'm not loved. One of the easiest signals of all to spot, because it often occurs at dead of night. It is 2 o'clock in the morning when an insistent hand shakes you awake. Is it burglars? Is it labor pains? Is the house on fire? No, it is not. It's a request for fresh raspberries, which are invariably out of season, or a hot roast beef sandwich with green relish, or a dozen baked clams, or something else equally complicated. You will have no rest until the order is filled. Basically, All of these cravings are not for food, they're for attention. If you satisfy that particular hunger, the eating orgies won't be necessary. There's no formula in existence that you can invoke to reassure your wife that you do love her, that you do find her attractive, you do want the baby, and that millions of other women have gone through childbirth and lived to tell the tale. It's a very personal area, and you, better than any book, should know how best to treat your wife. But as you've never been in this situation before, perhaps we can offer a few practical suggestions that may help to combat the cravings. Are you more comforting than a quart of ice cream? When cravings strike, your wife can be either head for the calories or for you. It's a straight contest, you versus the icebox, and the winner is the one who provides the most solace. Perhaps you think we're making a problem out of a few simple snacks. After all, the woman's pregnant. Why shouldn't she indulge herself? What harm can a few extra pounds do? Quite a lot, as your doctor will tell you. Perhaps the most common complication in otherwise straightforward pregnancies is that excessive weight gain and obesity caused by overeating. It can lead to prolonged labor, cesarean section, premature birth, or toxemia. A less serious but unsightly result of carrying around too much weight can be varicose veins. And if you're still not convinced, you should know that every excess pound put on during pregnancy is more than normally difficult to diet off after the birth. Your wife's doctor will almost certainly give her a diet designed to give her and the baby the necessary nutrition without excess weight gain. Take a look at the diet, take an interest in it, and do all you can to see your wife sticks to it. You're not doing her or the baby any favors if you encourage cheating. Fortunately, given the choice between a slab of chocolate cake and some affection and understanding from you, your wife will probably choose you. But be prepared. This will involve a good deal more than a half-hearted hug and some vague words of encouragement. Here are some ways you can help. A shared diet is an easier diet. Your wife would need the self-control of a saint to be content with a salad while she watches you and put away a steak and french fries followed by a hot fudge sundae. The least you can do is meet her halfway at meal times. I'm not suggesting you starve yourself, but why not follow her diet for one meal a day? Dinner is best, obviously, as that's the meal you're most often together, and the time from when her resistance to forbidden foods is at its lowest. This idea has 3 distinct advantages. First, your wife will appreciate the constructive effort you're making to help her, and it will help. She'll find it much easier to stick to doctor's orders if she can see that you take them seriously, too. Second, you'll both try to find ways of making the diet interesting if you're both eating it. Anything from a lettuce leaf to a pot roast can be either bland or tasty depending on its preparation. As your wife won't be cooking 2 separate dinners, she can concentrate on making the diet delicious. Third, you yourself will probably lose a few pounds, and we don't know of anyone who wouldn't look better for losing a few pounds, including you. How encouraging. Put the icebox on a diet. If, like Oscar Wilde, you can resist everything except temptation, the smartest thing you can do is to put the temptation firmly out of reach. Go through the contents of your icebox, preferably in the morning when you won't be so tempted to cheat, and take out all the things you've both agreed not to eat. Give them immediately to the kids next door before you get a chance to weaken. Don't replace them on your next trip to the supermarket. Say goodbye to Sara Lee and Baskin Robbins. Saying goodbye to Sara Lee and Baskin Robbins may be a wrench, but it's not forever, and you can console yourself with the thought that this small act of abstinence is good for both of you. If either of you is a snack addict, you may find it impossible not to have something to nibble on from time to time. Try fresh fruit instead of cookies, yogurt and honey instead of desserts, cheese instead of candy. These alternatives don't provide the same guilty satisfaction as junk food, but they are better than nothing and a lot better for you. And who knows, they may develop into a healthy habit. Keep your lunches to yourself. 5 times a week, you'll have the opportunity of what to eat when you want without causing your wife a single pang of jealousy. Unless you work at home, your lunches from Monday to Friday are private matters between you and your digestion. For heaven's sake, keep them that way. Don't go into rhapsodies over the duck a la orange. Don't bring home the chef's recipe for chocolate souffle. Don't even complain about the double cheeseburger in the bar and grill being a little heavy. Otherwise, you end up wearing your dinner instead of eating it. And who could blame your wife for getting mad? She's on a diet 24/7. And a mouthful by mouthful account of your adventures through the menu isn't going to help her keep to it. So for the next few months, save the food talk until you can both go out and enjoy a 5-course meal. Exceeding the feed limit, if you have to do it at all, is not something you should be bragging about. P.S. The truth about eating for 2. It's a fallacy. A normally healthy woman needs very little extra food during pregnancy, between 5% and 10% more calories than usual, and about 5% more protein. Women who use pregnancy as an excuse to eat twice as much as normal are asking for trouble both during labor and during the slimming down period afterward. Okay. Smacks. What to do about it, and when to do without it. I have no idea whether or not Twitch is going to allow the word, so I'm just going to say schmicks instead. In the opening weeks of pregnancy, the first-time father traditionally behaves as though his wife has suddenly been transformed into flesh and blood into a delicate piece of china. Doors are opened, packages are carried, cushions are provided, and a robust young woman is treated like an alien octogenarian. Relatable? Indeed it is. All this attention is fine. Your wife will enjoy it, and it will do her good. But one place she won't want to be treated like an untouchable relic is in the bedroom. Whatever you may have heard, unless you have specific medical orders to the contrary, schmecks during pregnancy can and should go on for as long as you both feel like it, certainly up to the 8th month and sometimes beyond. Obviously, there are adjustments to make, which we'll come to later. The main thing to remember, though, is that healthy schmecks urge doesn't disappear just because a baby is on the way. Yours hasn't, and neither has your wife's. Often, quite the reverse happens. Freed from the worries of an unwanted pregnancy and able to throw caution and contraceptives to the wind, the pregnant woman can relax completely and enjoy lovemaking more fully and more frequently than before. In fact, there will probably be times when your wife will be more interested in having smecks with you. Even so, you may find that there is a pendulum pattern to her desire for schmecks. Because of the changes taking place in her emotions and her hormones, the extremes of desire, or lack of it, can be more pronounced than either of you have been used to. There's nothing she can do about it, so don't get upset if she occasionally doesn't feel like making love when you do. Be patient. Pendulums always swing back. One of the most basic requirements for a related schmeck's life during pregnancy is an understanding of what's going on inside your wife's body. When you know what's happening, it's easier to make the necessary schmexual adjustments. So right at the start, we strongly recommend that both of you go to the doctor. If there are any potential problems, such as a history of miscarriages in either of your families, both of you should hear about them straight from your doctor's mouth. If there's nothing to worry about, both of you should hear that too. A joint visit reduces the chances of a misunderstanding between you and your wife. It's a nice way to demonstrate that you really do intend to share the pregnancy, and you'll find it not only reassuring, but fascinating. If you haven't made an appointment yet, do it now. Meanwhile, here are a few general aspects of schmecks during pregnancy to think about while you're in the waiting room. Some schmexual days off. Although you can look forward to an active schmeck's life for most of the pregnancy, there are certain times during the 9 months when you should take it easy or abstain altogether. It comes as a surprise to most men to learn that the time to exercise the greatest schmexual caution is not just at the beginning of the pregnancy, but at the beginning too. Your wife, for the first few weeks, may show no outward signs of her condition other than slightly more voluptuous midsection. Don't let this lend you into thinking that nothing much is going on. The most fundamental part of the pregnancy, when the fertilized egg is developing into a tiny human being, takes place during the first 3 months. And with babies, as with many other forms of life, the first weeks of growth are the most vulnerable. That's why the vast majority of miscarriages happen within 3 months of the conception. This is not to say that you should move your bed out into the living room. But when you've been in the habit of enjoying a particularly acrobatic schmeck's life, now's the time to calm it down a little. There are certain days when it's wise to forget about schmecks completely. The days when your wife will normally be having a period, in the 12th week. Check with your doctor. He or she may also suggest a schmexual postponement during the last 2 months, but that depends more on the individual cases. Apart from the medically prescribed days off, there's nothing to stop you from making love whenever you both want to. But even when the spirit is willing, the flesh may be weak enough to cause you to make some changes in your normal routine. Nighttime's not always the right time. The chances are that you, like most of us, are limited in your opportunities for lovemaking by the demands made on your time pay work. With your days spent in the office, schmecks has to be fitted in first thing in the morning or at night. During pregnancy, even these few hours are in jeopardy due to circumstances beyond your control. For instance, let's take a typical weekday, early morning. There you are, half awake, and full of affectionate lust. Gently, you start to nuzzle your wife into consciousness. She wakes, she groans, she heads hurriedly for the bathroom. By the time she has recovered sufficiently from her bout of morning sickness to think about schmecks, you're dictating your first letter in the office. Undaunted, you determine to try again that night. You get home, have an early dinner. You yawn pointedly. She yawns. Off you go, to the bed, full of wicked intentions. Alas, her yawn wasn't a hint. It was genuine. She's exhausted from carrying around this embryonic passenger, and she falls into a deep sleep while you're brushing your teeth. What's to be done? With the best will in the world, you can't fight morning sickness. And the further you get into the pregnancy, the more tired your wife is going to be by bedtime. There is a solution, however, which has worked wonders for several pregnant couples we know. It's a delightful institution called the Naked Cocktail Hour. Here's how it works. You forget the usual sequence of a couple drinks, followed by dinner, followed by bed. Instead, you make for the bedroom as soon as you get home. Your wife will be less tired, and more likely to feel like making love. It will give you the sharpened appetite for dinner. And it's a lot more fun than a dry martini. Try it and see. Finally, Make the most of weekends to catch up on your lovemaking. For 2 days a week, the clock doesn't matter. If you feel like going to bed in the early afternoon and having breakfast at midnight, do it. Try to keep your weekends free from social obligations. Your schmeck's life is far more important than a game of golf or a dinner date. Positions. As the months go by, your wife is going to find it either uncomfortable or impossible to make love with the unrestrained enthusiasm of pre-pregnant days. Certain positions are out of the bulk as the baby comes between you, notably the classic missionary style. This can be even dangerous, as any position which involves deep penetration by the... by the penis. Luckily, there are still plenty of safe and satisfying variations to choose from, without attempting to catalog one. Here's one well-tried favorite that you can enjoy well into the final weeks. It is the safest, probably the best position for pregnant lovemaking. Both of you lie on the side, facing the same direction, so that you enter the vagina from behind. This gives you full use of one hand, limited use of the other, and makes dangerously deep penetration impossible. And then you obviously, since the baby is on the other side of the activity, the position will work no matter how big the bulge becomes. You'll find your own variations as you experiment, but keep away from anything violently athletic in favor of gentler techniques with shallower penetration. Make full use of your fingers and tongue. Try mutual masturbation. With ingenuity and practice, you'll discover a few schmexual extras that'll be giving you pleasure when your baby's gone to college. Keep on hugging. Despite your mutual willingness and ingenuity, the day will come when you have to call a temporary halt to full sexual activity. Unless you have hyperactive schmex drives, this shouldn't bother you. In fact, there seems to be a natural schmexual lull at the end of the most pregnancies, when both of you are quite happy to give it a rest. But be warned, many men make the mistake of linking schmex with affection. As one stops, so does the other. This couldn't happen at a worse time, as far as your wife is concerned. If she is like most women, the last stage of pregnancy will be an apprehensive and physically uncomfortable few weeks. She needs reassurance, and she needs affection, which you can no longer express through lovemaking. If there is ever a time to be more affectionate, more attentive, and more loving than usual, this is it. Over to you. Very important stuff. So this is the cookbook section. I don't know if I'm going to read this section just because there's not really too much I can talk about here. How much is left of this? 9 pages left. I'm gonna see if I can read a little quicker, but I'll still maintain my quiet disposition. Okay. Are you ready, chat? Let's begin. Okay. Is this the real thing? Is it indigestion? How do you know when it is time to go? The neat and tidy theoretical pregnancies last for 280 days or 10 lunar months and 28 days each. Real life is less predictable. Based on the information you have supplied, your doctor will give you an approximate birth date and approximately a warning not to take it too literally. Babies, being only human, are seldom that punctual. The first babies in particular have a tendency not to arrive on schedule. So don't put too much trust in the calendar. You'll You'll be much better off if you learn to recognize the signals that babies send out to let you know that they're on their way out. To be able to spot the true symptoms as opposed to the false alarms, which we come to later, it helps to know a little about the baby's travels from womb to delivery room. The final stretch. By the end of the 9th month, your baby is about 18 inches long and weighs several pounds. To get out into the world, he or she has to pass through the mouth of the womb, normally a tiny opening and only about 4 inches across when fully expanded. From there, progress continues down to the vagina and out in the open. The process demands miraculous elasticity and involves a lot of hard work on both the mother and the child. Whoever called it labor wasn't kidding. Labor is divided into 3 distinct stages. We've given indications of how long each stage takes, but they are only indications and can vary enormously. As a general rule, first many babies take longer to make a trip than any brother or sister who may arrive in years to come. Stage 1, often called the dilation period, because this is the stage during which the mouth of the womb is stretched out until there is space for the baby to pass through. The stretching is caused by the muscles of the womb. They contract, pushing the baby down towards its eventual exit. True labor contractions can be recognized by their regular pattern. At first, they're fairly far apart, perhaps every 15 minutes. And they don't last very long, only about 10 seconds. As labor continues, these contractions happen more often, last longer, and are more intense. Once they start, remember to time them before you call your doctor. Otherwise, it's difficult to tell how far things have gone. Another sign that the baby's intentions about leaving the womb are serious is the show, a discharge of blood and mucus from the vagina. This can happen often without your noticing, especially at night, so don't count on spotting it. In any case, the frequency of the contractions will tell you all you need to know, show or no show. The first stage of labor is by far the longest. At the risk of depressing both of you, it can last for 24 hours or more. On the other hand, it can be all over in 90 minutes. Both are quite normal. Mercifully, the longer-lasting labors are usually less painful, as the contractions tend to be shorter and less intense. Stage 2. This is the beginning of what is called the expulsion period. It's usually marked by an event described in rather spectacular terms as the breaking of the waters. Sounds like the title of an epic movie, but I digress. And all of it means is that the sac is full of fluid that has protected the baby for 9 months has broken. Pressure from the contractions which have been pushing the baby toward the mouth of the womb has caused a rupture in the sac. The fluid then escapes in a gush or a trickle. Either way, it is normally a sign that the baby is making its way down the birth canal. Not always the case, however. The waters can break much earlier. Again, the only foolproof guide to what's happening is the frequency of the contractions. The baby's progress down the birth canal, which ends in the actual delivery, takes anything from 30 minutes to an hour and a half under normal conditions. But even though the baby has appeared, more is yet to come. Stage 3. The birth of the baby is followed shortly afterwards by the expulsion of the afterbirth. This is the size of the soup plate, and it is the tissue through which the baby has been getting its rations of food and oxygen from its mother. Baby and the food supply were joined together by the umbilical cord, which will now have been snipped off. Time for the last stage, about 15 minutes. That very briefly is the normal sequence of events. Since most of the action will take place under medical supervision, there's no need to concern yourself with the fine points of delivery technique. What you should know, however, is when it's time to go. Too soon, and your wife will have to hang around in the hospital, which isn't as pleasant for her as hanging around at home with you. Too late, and you might find yourself wishing you'd watched Dr. Kildare more closely. To complicate matters, there are false alarms we mentioned earlier. Many a doctor has been rooted out of bed at 3 a.m. only to find that what you thought were contractions were gas pains in disguise. So for your own peace of mind, and to preserve good relations with your doctor, you should be able to tell the difference between the false alarm and the genuine article. False alarms. Stomach cramps, a few unexpected kicks from the baby, and plain old indigestion have all caused their share of premature panic. So have dropped pains, which are caused by the lowering of the womb inside the body for some 4 weeks before the birth. While these symptoms may not indicate the start of the main event, they don't dismiss them as minor irritations. They are invariably uncomfortable and often painful. The most effective general remedy we've come across for these assorted aches is for your wife to kneel on all fours. Most women find this brings partial or total relief. Also, it's a good position to try when true labor starts. This next page is just a picture. Crap, I'm out of chocolate milk. I should get some more. I'll get some later. As for distinguishing between true and false labor, all you need is your watch. If the symptoms come at odd intervals without any pattern, they may be uncomfortable, but they're not labor pains. Be guided by timing. In fact, it's best to write down when the pain occurs. If you rely on a flustered memory, it's easy to make mistakes. Just when you've resigned yourself to sitting out in the world's first 15-month pregnancy, something stirs. It's your wife, more restless than usual and complaining of a feeling of pressure in the small of her back. This is it. The pressure is caused by the growing tension in the muscles in the womb and is prelude to the rhythmical contractions that will now gradually develop. Time them carefully, and often how they come and how long they last. When they come regularly, every 10 minutes or so, call your doctor. It's not worth calling before unless the waters have broken or the show has appeared. If either happens, call at once. The best thing to do when your life is in labor. Your contribution during labor can make all the difference to the birth and your wife's feelings about it afterward. Whether she remembers it as a shared experience or a solitary ordeal is up to you. As a general rule, the more you can be with her during the various stages, the better, including the actual birth, providing that's what you both want and the hospital regulations permit. Some women prefer to give births without the father being present. Some men have been known to faint in the delivery room. And maybe, because of that, many hospitals don't allow the father in until it's time for him to meet his baby. So if you want to be at the birth, make arrangements in advance with your doctor and the hospital. Let's assume you want to be there and you want to be helpful. What can you do? After all, the place is full of experts who deliver more babies in a week than you'll ever see in a lifetime. Leave them to take care of the business arrangements. You concentrate on comfort and encouragement. You be there to rub your wife's back when contractions come. Be there to hold her hand when it hurts. Be there to cool her forehead. Talk to her, to tell her you love her. But above all, be there. It's the best pain reliever there is. It's very true. I wish I had a little bit more to contribute, but for the most part, this is a fact book. I'll be completely honest, I was not actually expecting, when I read the title of it being a pregnant father, I thought it was going to be a children's book. God, was I wrong. But it's also helpful, and it makes good information, especially when you're trying to fall asleep. So let's keep it up. Your hospital survival kit, and a guide to who's who in the waiting room. You've called your doctor. You've called the hospital. With monumental aplomb, you are about to step out the front door and immaculately clad in a checkered sport coat and striped pajama bottoms. You think this kind of thing only happens in movies? It happens to real people too. However well prepared you think you are for the hospital trip, when it's time to go, your first instinct is to rush headlong for the maternity ward. Relax. Let your wife be an example to you. For some mysterious and wonderful reason, best known to nature, the pregnant woman whose time has come is almost always serene, unworried, and totally in command of her situation. She is, of course, confident that you have taken care of your side of the arrangements. You have? Is that a green as in rule? Yes, indeed it is. I am indeed a green Azumarill. And it's a pleasure to meet you. But yeah, I am indeed a green Azumarill. And I'm almost done with this book. Care to join me? Okay, moving on. Excellent. Then you won't be worried by questions like these. Do you know the way? Chat, shut up. You have probably only been to the hospital once before, when you made the initial reservation. In the subsequent months, construction, work on the road, and a new one-way traffic system can add 25 nerve-wracking moments to the trip. Or, not moments, minutes. I know how to read. Or still, they could cause you to get lost. There's a 50-50 chance that you'll have to make the drive at night, when unfamiliar roads look even more unfamiliar. Have we given you enough reasons to make a dry run to the hospital one night soon, just before you have to do it for real? Okay. Is your car ready for fatherhood? If there's one occasion during the year when your car will have an attack of temperament, you can bet that this will be it. Keep the tank full of gas. Check the tires regularly. Check the battery. And as a failsafe, find a sympathetic neighbor who will lend you his car if catastrophe strikes yours. Quick, where's a taxi? A taxi is a great way to avoid all possible horrors we've just outlined, always providing you can find one when you need it. In times of emergency, as in times of rain and snow, cabs tend to vanish. For safety's sake, arm yourself with the telephone numbers of not one but two 24-hour radio cab companies. And when you call, don't take it slow for an answer. Explain the circumstances, and you'll get quicker service than you'd ever possibly believe. Cab drivers are fathers too. Assuming you have the business of getting to the hospital well in hand, we can now concentrate on what you'll be taking there. I really need another drink. Okay. For some weeks now, you'll probably have been aware of a curious ritual taking place at an odd intervals in the bedroom. It consists of your wife, a suitcase, and an ever-changing selection of its contents. The smaller the suitcase, the more often it gets unpacked and repacked. In the quieter moments, it stands at the ready by the bedroom door. The basic contents are items suggested by most hospitals in a kind effort to be helpful, the things they feel for your wife will need during the first couple of days as a new mother. If only you knew what complications are triggered off by the slight of simple list. The list, of course, more than adequate for 2 or 3 days. The trouble is that, oh dear God, this entire thing is words. Oh, right. This page. Here we go. First-time mothers feel a compulsion to pack for a week or more. And how many women can put everything they think they may need an entire week into one small case. Without even considering the baby's wardrobe, there are nightgowns, robes, street clothes, hair dryers, cosmetics, books, magazines, and heaven knows what else to cram in. Hence the ritual in the bedroom, and often the slight substitution of a larger and larger suitcases. We have seen couples painting up to the maternity desk with enough equipment to mount an attempt on Everest. A few days in the hospital, they bring enough to withstand a 6-month siege. If you can find some way to avoid taking a cabin trunk to the hospital, your departure from home will be quicker, easier, and less likely to give you hernia. We suggest that you pick up your moment to make a deal with your wife. She agrees to take the absolute minimum suggested by the hospital in one small bag. In return, you agree to provide a shuttle service between home and the hospital, delivering what she needs on your daily visits. One important advantage to the system is that it leaves you with a free hand to carry your own emergency supplies. And you're certainly going to need something to sustain you through those hours in the waiting room. Maternity hospitals are superbly designed for maternity, but the facilities for pregnant fathers are usually modest. A handful of dog-eared magazines, a few hard chairs, and coffee with a distinct whiff of disinfectant is about all you can expect. The survival kit, which we now recommend, has been tested in the field. It can be prepared well in advance, carried in one hand, and should provide a measure of comfort and diversion during your vigil. A standard airline shoulder bag will be quite large enough for a small battery-operated TV. Most models come equipped with an earphone attachment so you can listen without disturbing anyone else. A small I read that a bit already. A long but uncomplicated book. Your powers of concentration will be limited, so don't pack anything too intellectually demanding. The phone number of the nearest all-night deli. With luck, they may deliver to your hospital. If not, an advance call lets you pick up your order and be back in position almost instantly. A large bag full of dimes. Why dimes specifically? Doesn't explain. Oh well. Names and phone numbers of all the people you want to call the minute your firstborn makes an appearance. You might also need your secretary's home number in case she has to cancel a few meetings. A small flask containing something to fortify you and to disguise the disinfectant taste of hospital coffee. Toothbrush and toothpaste. One of the most refreshing things you can do after spending hours in a stale room is brush your teeth. A pack of cards. If all else fails, a game of solitaire is better than staring at the wall. Obviously, you'll want to add your own refinements to this basic kit. A Polaroid camera. For instance, you can take home pictures to show the new grandparents. The variations are endless, as long as they all fit into that one small bag. With luck, and this is in bold letters. At least it seems like it is. Put the microphone closer. With luck, you may hit a busy night in the waiting room and find a cast of characters infinitely more entertaining than anything you've brought along. There are several recognizable types of pregnant father. Score 10 points for everyone you identify, and give yourself a bonus if you catch them all in the same room at the same time. A guide to who's who in the waiting room. The numbers man never goes anywhere without at least 4 members of his family to give him moral support. He, his sister-in-law, his brothers, and two cousins form the basic party, with frequent visitors from other relations during the waiting hours. Endless supplies of beer are produced from some mysterious portable store. There's much nervous laughter. As the night wears on, the party breaks up, and the numbers man is left alone. He invariably falls asleep in the nest of beer cans just in time to miss the birth of his child. The office freak arrives in the hospital dressed as to attend a director's meeting of General Motors. Distinguishing marks, waistcoat, bulging attach case, and a pocket calculator, which he operates with the precision of a concert pianist. From time to time, he consults his watch, but he's confident the baby will arrive well before the stock market opens. Sure enough, it does. The jitterbug, the classic anxious father. Unable to relax, he prowls around the waiting room and the corridors with rumpled hair and staring eyes. Frequently mistaken for a patient due to the pajamas he is wearing under his raincoat. In between circuits of the waiting room, he perches on the edge of a chair, only to spring up in twitching expectations every time the door opens. Such is the unfairness of life, that he usually has to wait longer than anyone else, or maybe it just seems that way. When I become a pregnant father, that is likely going to be me. I'm likely going to be the jitterbug. Is that a bad thing? No, I don't think so. But who knows? The pro. Watch this one closely, as you want to pick up a few pointers on waiting technique. He's been through it all before, and paces himself beautifully. A little light reading to start with, then a short nap in order to be rested and fresh for the great moment. Comes superbly equipped to turn his corner of the waiting room into a home from home. Cordless electronic shaver and traveling alarm are standard. We even have seen one pro set up a small coffee precollator. I can read. Yeah, I can read. only got a couple pages left, Chad. There's one born every 10 seconds, a random selection of information and advice that doesn't really fit anywhere else in the book. Some wildly inaccurate ways of predicting your unborn baby's schmecks. Guessing the schmecks has been a favorite preoccupation of pregnant couples ever since pregnant couples first began. In ancient Egypt, if the mother's face had a greenish tinge, she was definitely carrying a boy, as well as a severe case of indigestion, but the sound of it. In Russia, dreams of parties were sure signs of the baby being a girl. The Japanese used to believe that you could guarantee the arrival of a boy by thinking hard of manly pursuits, although a discreet veil is drawn over what particularly kinds of manly pursuit you should think about. I'll never forgive the Japanese. You better get that reference, because if you don't, I'll be disappointed. The march of progress is into the Middle Ages led to a more sophisticated form of prediction. If the woman's right breast grew larger than her left breast, you could expect a boy. That sounds like absolute bullshit, chat. Your wife has none of these symptoms. You can always try listening to her heartbeat during the last 3 months of pregnancy. A fast rate, 144 beats per minute or more, is supposed to indicate a girl. A slow rate of 124 or less is a boy. In fact, it's quite possible for your baby's schmecks to be predicted by scientific tests, but they're not as fun as measuring the right breast. Upon meeting your baby for the first time, all babies, Sir Winston Churchill once said, look like me. How right he was. Very new babies are often bald, usually wrinkled, and frequently purple with a bad temper. Meeting one for the first time can be an alarming experience, even when it's yours, but reassured. Within a few days, it'll be an odd-looking little creature will turn into the most beautiful baby you have ever seen. How to be financially delighted when it's triplets or quads. What would you do instead of one extra mouth to feed? There were 2, or 3, or more. When the patter of little feet suddenly become a stampede, it's difficult to avoid a feeling of complete panic. One baby is expensive. Several babies all at once could put you in deep into hock for years. Fortunately, you can insure against being bankrupted by babies, although it is not easy to arrange a very worthwhile jackpot, as we discovered. Our first approaches were to big, established insurance companies. Yes, they said, of course you can insure against multiple births, providing you to take out the policy not less than 22 weeks before the expected arrival date. Then followed a very reasonable set of questions to establish the medical and family mysteries. Based on the answers, a premium was quoted. Then we ran into this big snag, which was common to all the companies we contracted. The maximum sum they would insure was pathetically small, ranging from $1,000 up to principally $1,500. With multiple medical bills to pay and multiple sets of clothing and equipment to buy, how long do you think that would last? Not long enough, we felt. So we went into the independent instance broker. His suggestion was Lloyd's of London, who will insure anything from oil tankers to English weather for a price. Sure enough, they'll insure against multiple births as well. We asked for quotes on insured sums of $25,000 to $50,000 for a hypothetical couple under 30 years old, in good health, and with no twins or triplets in their family histories. Okay. Premiums were high, around $800 to $1,600 respectively, but $50,000 would enable you to greet the arrival of triplets with a bottle of champagne instead of a bank loan. If you're interested in following up this idea for yourselves, bear in mind the need for speed. Even Lloyd's won't insure if the pregnancy is too far advanced. In fact, they require the proposal form to be submitted within the first 2 months of pregnancy. The fine art of choosing names. The European royal families hedge their bets by equipping their offspring with as many as 14 different given names. It's a little cumbersome for most of us, although it would be great to have a choice of names when you're old enough to know what you want to be called. The most common mistake in choosing a name comes from forgetting the fiendish tortures that the kids inflict on other kids because of the unconventional name, an unfortunate set of initials, or a cute nickname that becomes less and less cute with every passing year. The agonies of embarrassment suffered by clumsily named children are deeply felt, so use a little foresight for when you're choosing. Incidentally, it's wise to have your name choices settled before you go to the hospital. In some states, authorities require a complete birth certificate, including names, to be registered within hours of birth. Breast versus bottle. As the last count, more than 70% of the nursing mothers in America were given their infants commercial formulas feedings from a bottle. But despite their figures, breastfeedings have some tremendous natural advantages. A healthy mother's milk is always sterile and delivered at the correct temperature. Minimum preparations is required. The natural formula is superb in terms of nutrition and digestibility. And you. Oh, that is a boob. That is indeed a boob. Probably good that I'm not showing the images on screen, but just the cover. Otherwise, I am definitely getting banned. Okay. The father don't have to get up for the 2 a.m. feed. Right there, we suspect, is the true reason for the overwhelming popularity of the bottle. It means that you can share the feeding chores. On just about every other account, the bottle comes off second best. Oh well, console yourself with the fact that your baby's mealtime will conform to more civilized hours after the first 3 or 4 months. How to live at peace with the grandparents. Adopt the same principles as the TV networks use with the political parties. Equal time for both sides. Wait, what? Okay. Alright. Unique birth announcement cards. Take a photograph of your baby the first day you go visiting the hospital. Have an express printing service run as many copies of the photograph as you need. Within 3 days, you can be mailing a totally original and personal record of your baby's arrival. Otherwise, make friends with our illustrator, Arthur Robbins. He does terrific announcement cards, like the one shown here. Okay, why new babies are often cross-eyed. Many a new parent have been startled to see that a baby's big blue eyes focus firmly on the end of its nose. Don't panic, the muscles controlling the eyes are not fully developed at birth, hence why the erratic behavior of the eyeballs. Within a few days, coordination of muscles and the nerves will straighten them out. How to get a birthday present from the IRS? Wait, excuse me? Wait, excuse me? I'm trying not to laugh out loud. It is 1:30 in the morning, and if I do anything too loud, I am definitely going to regret it. Oh, by the way, the notification didn't show up, probably because I forgot to put this thing on, but I'm a banjo main, okay? Thank you for the follow. I have no idea if you're still here, but thank you. Okay. I should probably actually fix that real quick. Alert box. That's what it is. Alright, I'll put it right here. Hopefully next time. Yeah. Oops. Crap, I forgot that upon changing the stream. Crap, I was also... Oh well. I suppose it doesn't matter. But I have the alert box there now, so if anything else happens, I'll be able to fix that. Okay, moving on. Arrange with your wife that she will give birth before 11:59 on December 31st. If she does, you can qualify for a full year's deduction of $750. Even if nature conspires against you when you miss out on that deadline, there are still some financial consolations available. Obstetrical care qualifies as a deductible medical expense, so among other things, you can deduct visits to the family doctor, fees incurred during parental care, delivery, and postnatal care. All hospital expenses over and above those already covered by the insurance, and the cost of ointments and other medication for minor conditions like diaper rash, even the cost of a nurse to take care of mother and child. Don't take our word for it, as these items can change from one year to the next. Check with your accountant. You'll find that Uncle Sam has a soft spot for babies, and you might as well make the most of it. The world's most fascinating baby toys. Right, that picture does not look like water or anything. That just looks like really ridiculously long legs or a ridiculously long dress. But I digress. The world's most fascinating baby toys. For variety, educational value, and virtual indestructibility, no toy ever invented can beat parents. Well, there was nothing in that section. Wow. Okay. The ideal time to have your second baby. Between 2 and 3 years after the birth of your first one. The age difference is small enough for them to grow up together as close companions. You can get double use from clothes and equipment, which would be lost or thrown away if the gap were bigger. And you'll both still be close enough to the bigger memory of diapers and midnight feedings, so that a second dose won't be too much of a shock to the system. How to help your wife get her figure back. You have one final task before you can consider your pregnancy officially over, to act as cheerleader and chief assistant in the regaining of your wife's pre-baby shape. Even though it's something you both want, it's not as easy to achieve as you may think. For the first few weeks after the birth, your wife will probably go through the most advanced case of anticlimax. The excitement is over, the baby's demands are insistent and tiring, she feels physically and emotionally droopy, willpower is at a low ebb, and self-indulgence is easier than self-discipline. Your encouragement is critical in these 3 main areas. Exercise. Any good baby book or your doctor will provide a program of postnatal exercises to tighten up the muscles that have been stretched during pregnancy and birth. They're very simple and they don't take up very much time. 10 minutes a day is about average. But like any exercise, they won't be much of any use unless they're done regularly. And therein lies the problem. Exercising alone is a gloomy business. We're not suggesting that you go through the exercises as well, although it certainly wouldn't hurt. But you can at least help by being there to take your wife through the program. The only way exercise works for most of us is to make it a habit, so put aside a special time each day and stick to it. Within 3 or 4 days, you'll see results. Okay, diet. If you've been sharing your wife's diet during the past 9 months, keep it up. Another few weeks isn't going to kill you. If you haven't made any gastronomical concessions so far, now's the time to make them. It may actually be a bit easier now for both of you since you should see your wife's weight go down, whereas the pregnant diet is at best a holding operation. You may find it helps to have a weekly weigh-in, or to have a bet on how long it takes your wife to go back to her old fighting weight. The main thing is for you to take an interest in seeing how fast the pounds come off. Dieters love an audience. I never knew that. I never knew they preferred an audience. Incentive. The basic incentive of wanting to be attractive is built into every woman, and it's a powerful ally in the battle of the bulges. I know what they mean, but battle of the oh god, I can't get too loud, but battle of the bulges. God, I like that. Battle of the bulges. Do you like that, Jen? It's God, I'm so going to hell. Okay, moving on. As with dieting, however, it needs much more demonstrative reward than a mirror and a set of bathroom scales. Let no improvement pass unnoticed, whether it be the loss of a couple pounds or half an inch. Oh shit, this is the last page. Or a new hairstyle. If her waist feels smaller and her stomach firmer, tell her. Even exaggerate a little. Reality will catch up with wishful thinking, given enough encouragement. As more tangible incentives, treat your wife to a new outfit when she gets back down to her old size. Then leave the baby with the grandparents and go off for a dirty weekend in a good hotel. Break the diet, pop the cork, and celebrate. You've both earned it. And that's the end. That is the end of how to be a pregnant father. I hope you enjoyed that. Frankly, I was not expecting this book to be as informative as it was. But probably because I only briefly glanced over it while yeah. Ugnak says thank you. You're welcome. But don't go yet, because we've got one more book that I'm going to read on stream. is actually a collection of short stories. Yeah. It's called Illustrated Stories for Boys. Let me grab the. Oh, I probably should have selected the detail. It's called Ushborn Illustrated Stories for Boys. But it doesn't say who the author is, which is a little weird. Or unless the author is Ushborn. Oh, interesting. Okay. Before we begin this one, though, I'm just gonna go refill my chocolate milk. So I will be right back. I was expecting that to actually go all the way down. You know what? I'll just go to the side. I'll be right back. I'm back. And I've got my chalky milk. Oh, that's in my head. That's a good spot. Okay, let me get the cover of the book. Ushborn. Illustrated Stories for Boys. But girls can enjoy it too. Yeah, here we go. I found the cover. Now I just gotta go put it on Streamlabs. Okay, so this was... What was it titled? So here's where the real bedtime story kind of stories. The other one was informative, which I was not quite expecting, but that's fine. These stories are completely, they're the kinds of stories your father would tell, would put you to bed with. He would read you one of these stories, just to get you an attempt to sleep. But that's kind of the point of these streams. So yeah, ASMR. Story reading, bedtime story reading, to help you sleep, and maybe relive some of the memories that you had in your past. So I don't know which stories I want to read specifically. I'll read some of the ones that I'm really familiar with. Okay. Ironically, a lot of the beginning ones are actually pretty good. I'll start with this one. These are very simplified stories, and it'll be a completely different tone than the original, but that's fine. Not the original, the first story that I told. That's not really a story, is it? These are stories. Okay, let's begin. The Masked Pirate. Sam Sardine had always wanted to be a sailor. He was desperate to travel the seven seas and do battle with bloodthirsty pirates. As soon as he was old enough, he joined Captain Winkle's ship as a cabin boy. But Sam soon found that life on board wasn't as exciting as he thought. He spent all day mopping the decks, peeling potatoes, and washing the sailors' smelly socks. Frankly, he'd have enough. He went to the captain and asked for a proper sailor's job. Captain Winkle thought Sam was rather rude, but decided to put him to the test. "All right," he said. "Let's see you sail a ship in the port." Sam's chest swelled with pride as he took the wheel, but steering the ship wasn't as easy as it looked. Luckily, there's a picture. He crashed straight into the dock, and the captain's shouting, "You clumsy crab cake!" And Sam is shouting, "Oops!" Luckily, the ship wasn't too badly damaged. Sam begged for one more chance. "Hell no," said the captain. "I'm kidding, that's not actually what it said." He said, "Oh, very well," said Captain Winkle at last. "You can guard the ship's treasure." That night, while the rest of the sailors snored in their bunks, Sam sat guard. But he was exhausted after his hard day's work. Soon, he was fast asleep as well. Hours later, Sam was woken from his dreams by a wicked laugh. He rushed up on the deck to see the dreaded masked pirate sailing off with Captain Winkle's treasure. "Ha ha ha, it's mine, all mine," said the masked pirate. Sam felt terrible. What would the captain say? He didn't have to wait long to find out. When Captain Winkle had calmed down, he offered a reward to whoever could track down the thief or his treasure. But as the pirate always wore a mask, no one knew what he looked like. Suddenly, Sam had an idea. "I'll find the pirate and your treasure," he said. Am I going to trust this 15-year-old boy? No, but I'll pretend. This is a children's book after all. Captain Winkle didn't have much confidence in his cabin boy, but no one else had a plan. That evening, Sam went to the Spyglass Inn, where the local pirates spend the night. At breakfast next morning, Sam said in a loud voice, "I heard the masked pirate talking in his sleep last night. He described the exact spot where he hides his treasure." One particular pirate, sitting in the corner, began to look worried. Sam's plan was working. "Now I know where the treasure is, and I'm gonna get it for myself," Sam went on. Hearing this, the pirate rushed out the inn. Sam followed close behind. The pirate jumped into a boat and rowed to an island just off the coast. Sam ran to Captain Winkle, yelling, "Follow that pirate." When they arrived on the island, they found the pirate hurriedly digging up a treasure chest. The captain recognized it at once. It was his treasure chest. Taking a flying leap, he landed on the pirate. "Take my ship and fetch help, Sam, my boy," he roared. "You trust me to sail?" cried Sam. He grinned from ear to ear. "Aye, aye, Captain," he said. The end. Did you like that story? Got a few more here. Ugnak, thank you for the follow. Thank you so much. Welcome to be part of the crew. Okay, I'm gonna move on to the next story. Robot Racers. This one I think was among one of my favorite stories as a kid, and now I'll share it to you. Squeaky the cleaning robot hated his job. He was out in all weather, sweeping streets. What he really wanted was to win the Pottsville Road Race. The winning robot would get a new memory chip and a head-to-wheel polish. But Squeaky didn't dare enter. He was so rusty and clanky, he wasn't sure he could ever finish the race. He was feeling sorry for himself when a noisy robot zoomed past. Out of the way, Rust Bucket! Tank Top was the biggest, meanest robot in town. Everyone was certain he would win tomorrow's big race. But Tank Top wasn't taking any chances. He had a plan to make sure none of the other racers even started. That night, as the Pottsville robots recharged themselves, Tank Top visited each of his rivals in secret. He gave Tina Turbo a puncture, stole Cybersid's memory chip, undid Andy Droid's battery pack, and reset Betty Byte's built-in alarm clock. I'm now realizing as an adult that he probably just murdered like 2 of these robots. But oh well. Love's fair and love and war, I definitely got that expression wrong. But who cares? The next morning, Tank Top was the only robot at the starting line. He looked as if his plan had worked. The judge was puzzled. Where is everyone, he wondered. I'll take my prize now, smirked Tank Top. There must be someone else willing to race, cried the judge desperately. Tank Top was making him look stupid. But then a tiny voice, a tinny voice, is that a pun or is that shoot? I don't know. I'm just gonna pretend it's a voice translation, or not typo. Just then a tiny voice piped up. I will. Everyone in the crowd turned. Is that Squeaky? Someone said in amazement. What chance have you got? I'd like to try, said Squeaky. His joints were feeling especially stiff today, but he couldn't miss his chance. Very well, said the judge, with a sigh of relief. Robots, on your marks. Tank Top hadn't bothered to charge up his battery that morning, but he was confident that he could still beat Squeaky. The robots set off on their lap of the town. Tank Top raced off with a roar, and Squeaky clattered off in hot pursuit. As soon as he was out of sight of the crowd, Tank Top opened a flap in his back. Ha ha, he chuckled. These nails will slow down that robo-wreck. By the time Squeaky spotted the spiky trap, it was too late. Luckily, Squeaky was so old that his wheels were made of solid rubber. They didn't burst, and he was still in the race. I'll show that cheat, thought Squeaky. He put on a burst of speed. Soon, he had caught up with Tank Top. Let's see you get out of this, boomed Tank Top as he opened another compartment. Oil, squealed Squeaky. Squeaky shut his eyes and hoped for the best as he slithered and slid all over the road. Squeaky was left battered and dented as he had crashed into a telephone pole, or at least what looks like a telephone pole. But he was still at least in one piece. He tried to get up and found he couldn't move. His joints were too stiff. But as he sat there, Squeaky realized what he needed was all around him. Unwinding his hose, he guzzled up every last drop of oil, which is not physically possible, but we'll pretend like it is. Soon, Squeaky was back on his rival's tail. Tank Top was running out of power fast. But Tank Top still had one trick up his sleeve, his telescopic arms. He reached out to Squeaky's front wheel and undid the screw. Sparks flew through the air as Squeaky's wheel bounced past Tank Top. In seconds, Squeaky had ground to a halt. As the crowd came back into view, Tank Top used the last of his remaining power to roar across the finishing line. "I've won," he cried. Tank Top was already boasting to the crowds as poor old Squeaky was carried across the line. "Congratulations," cried the judge as he shook Squeaky by the hand. "Well, I suppose I almost won," Squeaky sniffed sadly. "Not almost," said the judge. "You did win. Look." He showed Squeaky and Tank Top the photograph taken at the finishing line. "Your wheel crossed the line a second before Tank Top. That makes you the winner." Squeaky clunked with delight. The crowd cheered, and Tank Top blew a fuse. The end. I remember really loving that story as a kid. Okay, what's next? Oh, this one's a really good one. It's ironically the next one. I'll skip around eventually, but this one's a good one too. And I think the next one after, the one after this one's good as well. Although I didn't like this one before because of the art style, but I've grown accustomed to it. Anyway, Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. Oh shit, they're turning this one into a movie, actually. I think it's coming out. It's either already out or it's coming out. It's one of the two. I forget what. It was New Year's Eve in the kingdom of Camelot, and King Arthur was holding a feast. Everyone was eating, laughing, and having fun when a giant knight strode into the hall. He was as big as a bear and looked as wild as a wolf. But the strangest thing about him was he was completely green. Sounds like my kind of sounds like one of my people. The giant looked at King Arthur's knights, seated around the table. After a pause, he roared, "Which one of you will play a New Year's game with me? You chop off my head, then I'll chop off yours." No one wanted to play his game, but the Green Knight refused to leave. Finally, Sir Gawain agreed. Seizing the giant's massive sword, he sliced off the green head. Everyone gasped as the head bounced down the hall like a huge green ball. Then the Green Knight's body calmly bent down, picked up the head, and tucked it under his arm. The head looked up. "Well done, Sir Gawain," it said. "Now it's my turn." Sir Gawain turned pale. "You have a year and a day." The head went on. "Meet me at the Green Chapel next to New Year's Day." "But where's the Green Chapel?" Sir Gawain said. "You must find it yourself," said the Green Knight as he took his leave. The following winter, Sir Gawain set off. He knew he was riding to a certain death, but he had given his word. He had asked a passerby, "Can you tell me where to find the Green Chapel?" But the passerby said, "I'd never heard of it." He searched the kingdom with no success. By Christmas, he was exhausted, but he would not give up. At last, Sir Gawain came to a castle in a forest owned by Sir Bertilac. Sir Gawain asked this question, and the Sir Bertilac smiled. "The Green Chapel," he said, "is just around the corner." Finally, sighed Gawain. When Sir Bertilac heard Sir Gawain's story, he asked the knight to stay with him. For 3 days, Sir Bertilac went out hunting. Gawain stayed at home with Bertilac's wife. In the evenings, they ate dinner together, The knights told each other everything they had done during the day. I chased a stag, said Bertilac, on the first night. Gawain blushed. I read to your wife, and she gave me a kiss, he said. I chased a boar, said Bertilac on the second night. Your wife kissed me twice, said Gawain, bright red. I chased a fox, said Bertilac on the third night. Your wife gave me 3 kisses, Gawain whispered. But Gawain kept a secret. And Sir Bertilac's wife had also given him a magic belt. She said it could save his life. Gawain knew that he should tell Bertilac, but he wanted to wear it when he met the Green Knight. On New Year's Day, Sir Gawain rode to the Green Chapel. The Green Knight was waiting. Telling Gawain to kneel down, he raised his massive sword. Don't take that out of context. Hee hee, I have grown up well. But then he lowered his sword again. The Green Knight raised his sword for a second time. Again, he put it down. The third time he raised his sword, Sir Gawain didn't worry. But this time, the Green Knight gave Gawain a painful nick on the neck. Why did you do that? Asked Gawain. The next minute, the giant started to shrink and shrink until he turned into Sir Bertilac. Yes, cried Sir Bertilac. I was the Green Knight. It was a test. I know you're brave enough because you came to seek me, but I wanted to see how honest a knight you were too. So I asked my wife to kiss you and give you the belt. Twice you told me the truth, and I didn't harm you. But the third time, you kept the secret. Sir Gawain fell to his knees. I'm a bad knight, he said. I'm a coward. You should cut off my head. Nonsense, said Sir Bertilac. You didn't even do that badly. Now come back to the castle. I've organized a feast. Gawain smiled, feeling incredibly relieved. Oh, and no more games, I promise. Sir Bertilac chuckled. The end. I swear, I'm kind of curious on how the movie of the Green Knight is going to be. Because this one was told in, 5 minutes? I wonder how the other one's going to be. I wonder if I still have viewers. Or maybe they fell asleep. In which case I technically would have done my job. I'll keep reading stories. I wonder how long I should go for. Let me just take a drink real quick. Okay. Alright, this story's called The Bed Monster's Secret. Ben Boggle lay awake in a cold sweat. How could he sleep with a monster under his bed? I'm still here just about to fall asleep. I'll tell some more stories and hopefully I'll help you fall asleep. Every evening it was the same story. As soon as Ben switched off his bedside light, the monster awoke with a snort. All through the night, the creature gurgled and growled in the shadows. Ben had never dared to look under his bed. He was too terrified what he might see. Perhaps the monster had 10 eyes, or long, slimy tentacles, or huge, sharp teeth, or all of these. At school, Ben could hardly keep his eyes open. "Wake up, Ben Boggle," yelled his own teacher. That's the third time this week you've fallen asleep in class. Mr. Grizzle liked people to be awake in his mathematics lessons, which, like most teachers, but no teacher ever likes their students falling asleep in their class. But I digress. Even when he was wide awake, Ben was hopeless with numbers. When he felt sleepy, they were even more difficult. "Get to bed earlier, young man," said Mr. Grizzle in a stern voice. Unless Ben could get rid of the monster, Mr. Grizzle would be shouting at him every day. Tired and worried, Ben was walking home when he spotted something in a shop window. "Ye Book of Monsters." Maybe that book has something about bed monsters, Ben thought. He dashed inside. As soon as he got home, without paying, Ben read the book from cover to cover, but there was no mention of monsters under the bed. But there was a chapter on what monsters like to eat. They like to eat little kids, monster hunters, small furry animals, big furry animals, and chocolate chip cookies. What a waste of money, thought Ben, as he threw away the book because he didn't actually spend any money on it. Then he had an idea. Perhaps the book could help him after all. Ben decided to build a monster trap. He raided the chocolate chip cookie jar and took a net from Dad's fishing box. In no time at all, his trap was ready. That night, he climbed into bed, switched off the light, and waited. At first, Ben's room was spookily quiet. Then he heard a crunching, munching sound, followed by a whoosh. His monster trap had worked. Nervously, Ben crept over to the net, but nothing could have prepared him for what happened next. "Please don't hurt me," squeaked a tiny voice. The smallest monster in the world was tangled in the net. "I can't believe I was scared of you," cried Ben. "I know," the monster said sadly. "I'm too small to scare anyone. That's why I hid under your bed. I didn't want you to see me. I'm the most useless monster alive." She wailed and started to sob. Ben began to feel sorry for the strange little creature. The monster sniffed. "It's impossible to scare people when you only weigh 15 ounces, she said. "I mean, that's less than half a kilo." "Is it really?" said Ben. "Oh yes," replied the monster. "I may be small, but I'm not stupid." This gave Ben such a great idea that he grinned all night, even in his sleep. He was still grinning the next day at school when Mr. Grizzle began the lesson. "Ben Boggle," barked Mr. Grizzle. "What is 9 times 8? 72, said Ben confidently. Mr. Grizzle couldn't believe his ears. "Oh," he said. "That's correct." Shakily, he said. He asked Ben problem after problem. Ben answered every one correctly. Mr. Grizzle was amazed. "Well done, Ben," he said. "What an astonishing improvement." Luckily, no one but Ben had heard the tiny voice whispering the answers. Ben smiled to himself. Mathematics is a lot easier when you have a monster in your pocket. The end. Okay. What's another good one? Oh shit, this one's good too. But I don't want to read like so many in order. I'll read this one. Okay, John and the Green Troll. Once there was a poor farmer. His wife was dead. He lived with his only son, John, near the mountains in Scotland. In the spring and summer, John and his father worked hard in the fields, plowing fields and using what looks to be a boat paddle to take a tree out of the ground. I think it would be quite obvious why that tree won't budge. I don't know why you're still trying that, buddy. But who cares? In the autumn, they shut up the farm and went out to sea to fish. But one year, John's father felt too old for the trip. "You'll have to go alone," he said to John. "Just remember one thing," his father warned. "Don't stop at the big black rock. That's where the trolls live." Gasp. Wait, no, trolls live in houses, like everyone else. They use computers and phones, and they come on twitch.tv, or they go on youtube.com, or more accurately, they go on twitter.com. Yeah. As John drove up a rocky mountain path, the sky grew dark, then a storm blew up. Lightning flashed, and the thunder growled. "I wish my dad were here," thought John. At last, he saw a big black rock. "Ah, I can shelter there," he thought. John had forgotten his father's warning. He was just glad to be out of the storm. He sat down outside a cave and unpacked his sack. God, I am so immature. "Oh, that journey really made me hungry," he said. "Time for supper." He had crusty bread, smelly cheese, an apple, and a very big fish. "Delicious," he said, as he chomped away. Suddenly, John heard a noise coming from inside the cave. He was so scared, he stopped chewing. What's that?" He could hear voices, babies' voices. They cried, "We're hungry." John quickly picked up the fish and cut it in half. He threw both halves into the cave. "Here, eat these," he called. The crying stopped at once. "Whew," said John. "Thank goodness for that." He was almost asleep when a giant shadow fell over him. John looked up. A troll was coming for him. "I smell a man," said a low, rumbling voice. Now John remembered his father's warning, but it was too late. God damn it. The troll came over to John and picked him up. He shook with terror. This was his first fishing trip alone, and he was the one to be caught. "Please don't eat me," he begged. But the troll was gentle. "Don't be scared," she said. "I want to thank you for feeding my children." The troll took John into her cave and looked after him. She even gave him her children's bed. It was lumpy, but John slept well. The next morning after breakfast, the troll waved John off. "Take these magic fishing hooks," she said. "When you reach the sea, look for an old man named Charlie. You must go fishing with him." "Thank you," said John. "I will. But only fish near the pointed rock," the troll warned. John did just as the troll had said. He found Charlie in an old hut by the beach. "Will you come fishing with me?" asked John. "Are you sure?" asked Charlie. "I'm the worst fisherman in the world. I never catch anything." Charlie showed John his boat. It was full of holes and falling to pieces. "Don't worry," said John. "I can soon fix that." He set to work with some tar and planks of wood. Soon, the boat was as good as new. "Let's row to that pointed rock," John said to Charlie. They put worms on the magic hook and started to fish. "Hey," John cried a few seconds later. "I caught one." "So have I," shouted Charlie. "And another, and another." They couldn't believe their luck. The boat was full of fish. The other fishermen couldn't believe it either. "What's your secret?" they asked. John told them to fish near the pointed rock, but when they tried, they didn't catch a thing. Every day for the entire winter, John's magic hooks caught hundreds of fish. "They've done it again," gasped a local fisherman. "Charlie's lucky at last," said another, shaking his head in disbelief. Every day, John and Charlie cleaned the fish and hung them up to dry. They had more fish than all the other fishermen put together. "There's something fishy going on here," one of them grumbled. When spring came, it was time for John to go home. On the way, he visited the troll and gave her half his fish. "I never could have caught them without you," he said. "Thank you," she said. "One day, you'll have a dream about me. When you do, you must come back to my cave." Back at home, John helped his father on the farm. A year later, he had a dream about the troll. Just as she said, "I have to go and visit someone," he told his dad. He quickly left for her cave without telling his father where he was going. At last, he reached the cave. He peered inside. "Hello?" he called. "Is anybody home?" There was no answer. John crept into the cave. It was empty, except for 2 chests. "Are they for me?" John wondered, completely ignoring that his name was engraved onto the lids of them. What could be inside? Well, I guess the lids are facing away. Anyway, he put the chests on his cart and took them home. When he opened them, he found piles of treasure and gold. John and his father were so rich, they never had to work again. "Hip, hip, hooray," they cheered. John never told his father where the money came from. The end. I remember this one. This one was fun. Complete bullshit, but still fun. Okay, how about this one? The Tale of the Haunted TV. One Saturday afternoon, Glenn Goggle was watching TV. Suddenly, the set made a funny fizzing noise, and the screen went black. Glenn's dad called out Mr. Sparks, the TV repairman. "You're worn it out, my lad," said Mr. Sparks. "Wasn't my fault," said Glenn. Mr. Sparks put the television in his van and returned with a battered-looking replacement. Glenn had never seen such an ancient TV set. "It's better than nothing," said Mr. Goggle. Glenn's parents had no problem watching the TV, but for the first time Glenn tuned in, something odd happened. A man in strange clothes appeared on the screen and burst into song. "This isn't Cartoon Club," muttered Glenn. "Welcome, one and all, to the world of Harry Hall," sang the man on the TV. Harry was a terrible singer, but he was so funny, Glenn didn't mind missing the cartoons. See, no normal kid would actually do that, but oh well. The next time Glenn switched on, Harry appeared again. This time, he was dressed as a magician. The show was even funnier than the last. Every trick Harry did went wrong. He dropped his wand. He dropped his cards. His hat suddenly grew flowers. Oh dear. Oops. Oh no. The useless magician made Glenn laugh so much he had to turn off the TV to stop his sides from aching. Next day, Harry tried to dance and kept tripping over his feet. Although Harry was funny, Glenn was starting to miss the cartoons. Glenn was about to switch channels when Harry fell forward, right through the TV screen. Then he grew to full size before Glenn's astonished eyes. Sorry, panted Harry. I should have taken more dance lessons when I was alive. Glenn gulped. You mean you're a ghost? That's right. I always wanted to be on television, said Harry. So when I became a ghost, I decided to haunt this set. You were very funny, said Glenn. I didn't mean to be, Harry replied. I can't rest easy in the spirit world until I'm a star, he sighed. Glenn felt sorry for Harry. He offered to let him stay if he stopped haunting the TV. Harry spent the next few days moping around in Glenn's room. Then one afternoon, Glenn showed him a ticket. Look what we're going, he said with a grin. Come and watch Talent Time, the top TV talent contest, being recorded Saturday, October 4th at 3 p.m. at XYZ TV Studios. Big cash prize for the top act. Harry was full of excitement. He'd never seen a TV show being made before. Glenn wasn't sure if spooks were allowed in the TV studios. Harry shrank himself down so Glenn could smuggle him inside. Glenn was relieved when he reached his seat in the audience. Harry peeked out as the lights dimmed and the show began. There were singers, dancers, and comedians. Glenn thought they were great, but Harry did nothing but grumble. I could do better than that, he complained. Shh, said Glenn, who was getting some funny looks from the woman beside him. Glenn didn't notice the ghost float away, so he got a shock when a full-sized Harry suddenly appeared on stage. Harry pushed the other contestants aside and went into his act. He sang terrible songs, he messed up his magic tricks, he finished with his clumsy dance routine after somehow changing into each outfit while on set. Seriously, he didn't strip down or anything, did he? Oh well, who knows. The audience roared with laughter. Harry won first prize as the star of the show, and they completely ignored the fact that he completely hijacked it. He called Glenn on stage to say thank you. With a big grin on his face, Harry faded away. Glenn grinned too. Harry had given him the prize money to buy a brand new TV. The end. Okay, next story. The Band of Robbers. You have a very coming voice. Thank you very much. I've been working on it. This is my first ASMR stream, so I have no idea if I'm doing it correctly. But I'm enjoying this. I'd like to read more stories on stream. Also, it's not doing an awful lot to my my throat or anything, because it's not like my other streams where I'm basically screaming through all the chaos. Okay, next story. The Band of Robbers. Pinchbeck the Wizard and Pogo the Goblin were walking together in the woods. These are not actually woods, these are just a bunch of bushes, but I'm going to ignore that. They were talking about a magic spell. The mushrooms must be picked at midnight, Pogo told Pinchbeck. They were so busy talking, they didn't see a robber creeping up behind them. I spy a bag of gold. Suddenly, the robber jumped out. He hit Pinchbeck over the head with his club. Give me your gold, he shouted. Pinchbeck dropped the gold. Pogo just ran like a little bitch. The robber tied Pinchbeck to a tree. 3 hours later, Pogo came back. My head hurts, groaned Pinchbeck. Let's go to the castle for help, said Pogo. Slowly, Pinchbeck and Pogo climbed to the castle. They stopped in front of a huge wooden door and knocked. Inside, the king and queen were having tea. Was that a knock? Asked the queen, pausing between mouthfuls of soft-boiled egg. I wonder who it could be, said the king. Who's there? Called the king. Pogo, said Pogo, with Pinchbeck the wizard. We were robbed in the woods. Please let us in. See, that's not actually how it works. I'm surprised they didn't just slam the door on him. That's terrible, said the king. Come in at once. The queen made some fresh tea and wrapped Pinchbeck's head in bandages. The robbers came here too, she said. And they're coming back tomorrow, the king added. If we don't give them 2 more bags of gold, they'll take over our castle, and we don't have any gold left. I could technically sell this tea set and give that to them, said the king. No, he didn't actually say that, but he should have. Seriously, he made no sense. That night, Pinchbeck and Pogo stayed in the castle. They wished that they could do something to help. My head's thumping too much, sighed Pinchbeck. I can't think of any spells. But Pogo had an idea. Early the next morning, he sneaked out of the castle. I hope I don't wake anyone up, he thought. He found 2 sacks in a shed and tiptoed through the garden. If he tried hard enough, he might be able to work a spell. As fast as he could, he stuffed both sacks with leaves. Then he hurried back to the castle. When Pinchbeck saw the sacks, he clasped with his hands in glee. Pogo, you've helped me remember a spell. Umpy Grumpy, do as you're told. Fool those robbers and turn into gold. Yellow smoke filled the air, and then... rat-a-tat-tat. I can do a sound effect for this because this is ASMR. Let me get the microphone as close as I can. I hope that was hearable. The robbers were banging on the door. Open up, they yelled. We know you don't have any gold. The castle's ours. The queen began to cry. But we have nowhere to go, she sobbed. Tough, said the robbers. Please don't take the castle, pleaded the king. Then the robbers heard another voice. It was Pinchbeck. Take a look at this, he called, waving at the robbers. They couldn't believe their eyes. The robbers blinked, then stared, then blinked again. Take your gold, said Pinchbeck, and make sure we never see you here again. Ha! We're rich now, said the chief robber. Why would we come back? And then they set off. They rode for 5 days and 5 nights. The sacks were getting lighter, but the robbers didn't notice. At last, they stopped to rest. Tired and hungry, they decided to cheer themselves up. Let's count our gold, they said. But all they found in the sacks were leaves. It's a trick, shouted the chief robber. We'll go back. But it was no good. They'd come too far and were completely lost. Karma. At the castle, Pinchbeck's head healed and his spells returned. It was time to go. But before he left, he gave the king and queen a magic sack of gold which would never run out. Then he and Pogo headed back into the woods the way they had came. The end. Okay. Yo, Dark Savage, thank you for following. Welcome to the crew. Okay. I've been streaming for 2.5 hours. Okay. I think I'll go on for another 30 minutes. Yeah, I'll go on for another 30 minutes. And then I'll go to bed because I gotta get up early tomorrow. And by early, I mean noon. Okay. This next story I wasn't really too fond of either growing up, but I know it's a classic. And I think as an adult I can appreciate it a little more. Sinbad the Sailor. Long ago, in the city of Baghdad, Sinbad lived with his father, a rich merchant. When the merchant died, he left Sinbad his whole fortune. Sinbad was so rich, he didn't need to work. Instead, he spent his money on fine clothes and wild parties, like the average college kid. One day he was shocked to find his purse empty. "I can't believe I've spent my fortune," he said to himself. He decided to follow in his father's footsteps and sell things for a living. First, he sold his house. Then he bought some expensive silks and spices and went down to the port. A group of merchants were busy loading their ship. They invited Sinbad to join them, and he jumped on board. After a week at sea, they dropped anchor by a sandy island. They were cooking supper over a fire when the ground began to rumble. "The island's moving," a sailor cried. "It's not an island," yelled another. "We're on a whale," cried the captain, and swam to the ship. And you see, this doesn't actually make any sense, because if they're this far out on sea, why the hell would there be a bunch of sand on top of a whale's back? It doesn't make any goddamn... I'm reading too much into a children's book. The others were flung into the sea as the whale flipped its tail and dived underwater. Many men drowned, but Sinbad was lucky. He clung onto a wooden chest and floated through the night. At dawn, he landed on the shore of a distant island. This is a children's book. They're freaking dead. How kind. Anyway, a man on horseback spotted Sinbad and took him to see his ruler, King Maharajan. Sinbad told the king about the whale. "Now I'm stranded far from home," he sighed. "Work for me, and I'll look after you," said the king. One day, Sinbad was on duty at the port when a captain came up to him. "Sir, where can I sell these silks and spices?" he asked. Sinbad was amazed. "I had some silk like that," he said. "Well, these silks belong to a merchant named called Sinbad," said the captain. "I am Sinbad," cried Sinbad. "But I thought you drowned." The captain was amazed, but he gave Sinbad his silks and spices. After selling them at an excellent price, Sinbad joined the captain's ship and set sail for Baghdad. I'm now realizing what that sounds like if you pronounce it like that. Keep quiet. Dear God. Okay. Perverted jokes aside. You know, Screw it, that's what I'm calling it now. At first, Sinbad was delighted to be home, but soon he had itchy feet. He wanted to visit new places, so he bought more silks and spices to trade. A friendly captain welcomed him on board this ship, and they headed for the high seas. One day they stopped at a deserted island to collect fresh water. Sinbad sat down in a shady spot and fell asleep. An hour later he woke in a panic. The ship had set sail without him. He was stranded again. Sinbad climbed a tree and looked over the island. All he could see was one huge white egg. As Sinbad watched, a gigantic rock bird flew onto the egg and settled down to sleep. Sinbad knew the rock bird was very strong. Maybe you could rescue him. He unwound his turban, crept up to the bird, and tied himself to its leg. When the rock woke up, it stretched its giant wings and soared into the sky. Sinbad found himself dangling high above the clouds. Before long, the rock dived down into a deep valley. Sinbad felt the hard ground beneath his feet and quickly untied himself. The rock caught a sheep in its claws and flew away. Sinbad stared in fear at the steep-sided valley. It was swarming with snakes which slithered over dead sheep. Then Sinbad noticed the ground was studded with jewels. He was stuffing some in his pockets when he saw a vicious snake eyeing him hungrily. Sinbad ducked down. How could he escape? Seeing the rocks circling overhead gave him an idea. Quickly, he tied himself to a sheep and waited. In no time, a rock swooped down and grabbed the sheep in its claws. It flew out of the valley with Sinbad trailing below. A rock landed on a cliff. It was about to eat the sheep when a group of men charged at the bird, scaring it away. "Bother," said one. "No jewels in this sheep's wool." Then they spotted Sinbad. His escape from Snake Valley amazed them. In return for some jewels, they put him on a ship bound for Baghdad. Once more, Sinbad was delighted to be home, but this feeling didn't last long. This time he traded a bag of jewels for silks and spices to sell. I think I'm remembering why I didn't really care for this story too much. It just felt very repetitive. His third journey went well, and land was in sight, when a bunch of short, ugly, and hairy men ambushed the ship. One by one, the hairy men threw the merchants overboard, then sailed away. The miserable merchants were washed onto a beach. They explored the new shore and found a courtyard filled with pots and firewood. But the courtyard was owned by a greedy giant who licked his lips when he saw his visitors. Before they could blink, he roasted a fat merchant. Again with just murder on these jeez. After supper, the giant fell asleep across the only exit. "Don't worry," whispered Sinbad. "When he leaves, we'll take his firewood and make a raft so we can escape." At dawn, the giant woke up, heaved himself to his feet, and left. The men hurried to the beach, where they tied the firewood together with vines. As they pushed off from the shore, they heard a giant splash. The angry giant was pelting the rafts with rocks. Seconds later, a rock smashed the raft to pieces, and likely also crushed one of the sailors and broke their bones. Again with the murder. Most of the men scratched that murder on multiple levels. But Sinbad and two others were lucky. They survived by clinging onto a log, but by noon they had fainted under the hot sun. They didn't just duck underwater like a normal person. The next thing they knew, they had drifted onto a stony beach and a huge snake had wound itself around them. And by them, they mean only one, because, or maybe never mind. It eyed the three men, opened its mouth wide, and swallowed Sinbad's two friends. Even though it's clearly wrapped around him, he very easily could eat him, but whatever, maybe it was just full. Sinbad didn't dare move until the snake had slithered off. Okay, this is another reason I think I didn't care for the story too much. It was very depressing. He gazed out to sea, praying for a ship to arrive, and one did. Better still, Sinbad recognized the captain from his second journey. "You left me behind," said Sinbad angrily. "I'm sorry," said the man. "Let me make it up to you. I'll take you home right away." Within a week, Sinbad was back in Baghdad. "Home again," cried Sinbad. And once again, it didn't take long before he was back at the market buying silk and spices. He joined another merchant ship and traded his goods from port to port. One day, a sudden gale whipped up the waves. Water came crashing down onto the deck and smashed up the ship. Sinbad and 7 other merchants were luckier than the rest. They clung onto the broken mast and drifted off to a far-off shore. There's a lot of murder and death. Not murder, this one. Well, I guess Mother Nature just is murdering people. The islanders found the men and took them to their king. "Welcome," said the king. "Please join us for a feast." They were all starving, except for Sinbad. He just watched as the others gobbled down food like pigs. To his horror, the hungry men actually turned into slurping, guzzling animals. "Stop eating," Sinbad cried, but the men no longer understood him. An islander rounded up Sinbad's friends and herded them through a door. Sinbad hid in a dark corner. When no one was looking, he fled from the palace grounds. He ran straight past the herd of men who were grazing in a field, and he didn't stop until he reached the other side of the island. There he couldn't believe his luck. A ship was sailing close to the shore. He waved at it wildly, and the captain waved back. Soon Sinbad was heading for Baghdad again. The problem was Sinbad found life at home dull after his adventures. One morning he saw a beautiful new ship at the port and decided to buy it. He loaded the ship with silks and spices, hired an eager crew, and set sail. They came to an island with another roc's egg. Some sailors were curious and went to see it. They threw stones at the egg to see how tough it was. 50 stones later, it cracked. "Fools," cried Sinbad. "The mother rock will want revenge." As they sailed away, a dark shape hid the sun. It was a rock. She dropped a massive boulder on the ship, and all but Sinbad perished into the sea. Jeez. Yet again, Sinbad was saved. This time, he was swept to a leafy island. He paused. As he paused for water by a stream, he saw a sad troll. Sinbad helped the troll cross the stream, but the troll refused to get down from Sinbad's shoulders. It just tightened its grip around his neck. For days, Sinbad was the troll's prisoner. He carried it everywhere until he was exhausted. Then he remembered he had a flask of wine. The troll saw Sinbad take a sip and snatch the flask. He glugged down the wine and was soon swaying from side to side. A few burps later, it toppled to the ground. Sinbad ran away and met some people carrying baskets. "Can you help me get to Baghdad?" he asked hurriedly. "If you help us collect more coconuts," replied a bald man. "How?" wondered Sinbad, following the group into a forest of palms. Monkeys chattered in every tree. "Watch," said the man. He picked up a stone and threw it at a monkey. The monkey was very annoyed and threw a coconut back at the man. "Hey, that almost hit me," muttered Sinbad. Soon, all the monkeys were throwing coconuts. Sinbad easily collected enough to pay for his trips home. For a while, Sinbad was happy, simply lazing around at home. And some merchants came to visit, and their tales of travel filled Sinbad with envy. He set sail once more, trading from port to port, until one night the ship sailed off course. In the gloom, no one saw the sharp rocks ahead. The ship was smashed to pieces, and only Sinbad and 4 others reached the shore. Jesus Christ, there's a lot of murder in this. I gotta stop saying murder. It's not murder, it's just a lot of death. They searched the craggy island from top to bottom and found nothing but rocks and water. One by one, the men starved to death. Before long, Sinbad was the only man left. He sat by a river, feeling very alone. Then he noticed something strange. The river was flowing into a cave, not out to sea. Sinbad had an idea. "I'll make a raft," he thought. "And hope the river leads me to some food." The riverbed sparkled with jewels, so he took a handful before floating off. His raft glided into the cave and sped up, hurtling through darkness. All Sinbad could hear was the whoosh of water. Had his luck finally run out? The next thing he knew, he was lying on a sunny bank. He looked up to see a crowd gathered around him. A local merchant gave Sinbad some food, and in return for several jewels, sent him on a ship for Baghdad. Back home, Sinbad's jewels bought him all kinds of treats. But guess what? Sinbad still wasn't content. "Soon I'll be too old to travel," he thought. So he set out on a final journey. He was aboard a merchant ship in the China Tree when a terrible storm blew up. A monster whale surged up through the waves. As it got closer, it opened its massive jaws and swallowed the ship in one gulp. Again, which is fucking death. Luckily, Sinbad managed to jump overboard, just in time. The storm died down, and once again he drifted to a strange shore. Safe again. I don't know how I do it, he thought. As he wandered through the exotic forest, he found a river flowing into a cave. Aha! I'll build another raft, thought Sinbad. But this river carried him through the darkness to a steep waterfall. "I'm a dead man," Sinbad screamed as he started falling. Suddenly, he stopped in midair. A surprised old man had caught him in a net. "You need to dry off," said the man, and he took Sinbad home with him. The old man asked his daughter, Emira, to fetch some clothes. As Sinbad gazed at her open-mouthed, he had never seen such a lovely woman. Emira's father thought Sinbad was charming and invited him to stay. Over the next few weeks, Emira and Sinbad fell in love. With the old man's blessing, the couple married. A year later, Emira's father died of old age, leaving her and Sinbad a fortune. "Why don't we go sailing?" said Sinbad. "We could buy some silks and spices to trade." "Oh yes," replied Emira, who had always wanted to travel. After months at sea, they found themselves in Baghdad. "What a gorgeous city," cried Emira. "Isn't it?" agreed Sinbad. He was delighted to be home, at least for a while. The end. That was a lot of a longer story. Oh god, I can hear my neck cracking. You did great ASMR job. Have a nice day. Thank you for coming by. Hope you have a good night. Or a good day, depending on what time it is for you. I'm gonna keep going though. I said I'm gonna go for about like another 12, 15-ish minutes. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Although, that was actually a very good story to end it on. Nah. I'll read some more stories. Okay. The next story is called Victor Saves the Village. Victor made barrels, the best barrels in the country. He made the best barrels because he used the best wood. He hunted hard to find the tallest, straightest trees. And then he brought chalk to them. Oh, and he also, I think, murdered a couple animals' homes along the way, but I digress. He was always looking out for the perfect tree, so he didn't always watch where he was going. One day, he tripped and fell into a cave. Try as he might, Victor couldn't climb out of the cave. Suddenly, he heard a deep growl. There was something behind him. Victor looked. He wished he hadn't. But there were 2 dragons. Please don't eat me, Victor begged. We won't, said one of the dragons. Not yet. We're going to sleep. Wake us up in the spring. Victor was stuck. He was bored as well. There was nothing he could do. He had to wait till spring. Had no idea how he climbed. All he had to eat and drink were grass and water. After a while, he was no longer as round as a barrel. He was as thin as a twig. Finally, the dragons awoke. We can't eat you, said one. You're skin and bone. Grab my tail, the other dragon said to Victor. We'll take you home. Perhaps your friends will make a juicy meal. He said with Victor still smiling for whatever reason. The villagers were amazed to see Victor after so long, and they were terrified to see the dragons. But before the dragons could bite anyone, Victor invited them to a huge feast. Victor and the dragons ate for a week. The dragons enjoyed the food so much, they decided they would never eat people again. The end. Oh wait, nope, there's one more. The villagers were pleased to hear it. They put up a statue of Victor in the market square. Now everyone who visits knows how Victor saved the village from 2 hungry dragons. Now he also always looks where he's going. The end. Now that one's the end. This is fun. Okay, here's one. I remember this one. The Terrible Tidybot. Luke, you're the laziest boy in the world, cried Mrs. Lively. His room was so untidy, she could hardly get in. Look at all this mess, sighed Luke's mother as she clambered over a pile of books, clothes, and toys. All you do all day is play on that beeping computer, said Mrs. Lively crossly. Luke wasn't listening. He had just reached level 12 on Android Attack. Now he needed to concentrate. I've had just about enough, young man, snapped Mrs. Lively. You have 1 week to clean up this room or the computer goes, she threatened. I mean it. Luke had heard that loud and clear. He couldn't possibly live without his computer, but cleaning his room would take forever. I need to get someone to help me clean this up, he thought. He spent the next 2 hours searching the internet for cleaning companies. They were all too expensive. Luke had almost given up hope when an advertisement popped up on the screen. The incredible TidyBot. It sweeps, it polishes, it shifts your junk. How can you live without it? Free 14 trials. Home 20. Send no money. Please allow 2 to 6 days for delivery. That's just what I need, cried Luke. It can clean my room, then I'll send it back. Just under a week later, the TidyBot arrived at Luke's house. He managed to sneak the box up to his room before his mother dashed past on her way out. I want that room cleaned by the time I come back, she shouted. The front door slammed behind. Luke had just 2 hours. He ran to his room and excitedly tore open the box. First, he read the instruction booklet. Then he aimed the remote control. The TidyBot was ready for action. Luke pressed a red button twice, and the robot jerked to life. Allow me to put away your clothes, sir. In minutes, all Luke's underpants, shirts, and socks were off the floor and neatly put away. Luke was impressed. He pressed button after button. The robot whizzed around the room, obeying every command. Allow me to put your books on the shelf, sir. Allow me to vacuum your carpet, sir. Allow me to put away your toys, sir. In no time at all, the bedroom was cleaner than it had ever been. Luke couldn't wait to see his mother's face when she returned. He took a step back to admire the TidyBot's work. As he did, he heard a loud crack. The remote control was bent and broken. I don't know why he put it on the ground, but... Yeah, no, seriously, why the hell did he put it on the ground? But Luke had more important things to worry about. Breaking the control unit had made the TidyBot go crazy. He hurtled around the room until it was messier than ever before. Before Luke could stop it, the rampaging robot zoomed out of his bedroom and down the stairs. It went through every room in the house, leaving a messy trail behind. It vacuumed the cat. It made toast. It washed the dog. Finally, the robot's battery went flat and ground to a halt. Luke stared at the house in horror. What would his mother say? He spent the next hour sweeping, mopping, and polishing, and he repacked the robot and hid it in the shed. When he'd finished, he was so tired that he went back to his bedroom to lie down. He was in for a shock. Oh no, I completely forgot about my room. As he slumped onto his bed in despair, his mother returned. Look at this room, she cried. But Luke was so exhausted he didn't hear her. Miss Lively shook her head as he carried off Luke's computer. You really are the laziest boy in the world, she said. The end. Okay, one more story. Now, which one do I do, though? I'll do this one, which ironically is just next in line. Okay, the final story for the night. The story of Shiverham Hall. Drink some chocolate milk. That's some good chocolate milk. But it's also finished, so this really has to be the last story. Story of Shiverham Hall. Have a frightful statement, him. Shiverham Hall was a hotel with a difference. All the guests were dead. Ghosts came from the spirit world to be greeted by Shiverham's spooky staff. There were 22 ice-cold bedrooms, a poltergeist-powered jacuzzi who the shit wears clothes in a hot tub, and a string quartet playing haunting tunes. No living soul dared to visit the hotel. It was far too creepy. The ghosts were left in peace. Then one afternoon, the hotel's deathly hush was shattered. Most of the ghosts were napping. Mr. Quiver, the hotel's manager, had come down for a glass of water, which you don't really need if you're a ghost, but... Suddenly, a round-faced man flung open the front door and strode up to the reception desk. "This is just what I've been looking for," he boomed. A tall, thin man scuttled in after him. Are you sure, Mr. Slate?" he asked nervously. "Of course I'm sure, Slimkins," he barked Slate. "This will make the perfect site for my new hotel. I had it all designed." Slate proudly spread out a large plan in front of his assistants. And behind them, Mr. Quiver sneaked up to get a better look. Crap, I banged my microphone. I hope that didn't make too loud of a noise. Okay, Mr. Quiver was horrified. "I'll have this place demolished in no time," Slate went on. "But perhaps I'll look around and see if there's anything worth saving first." "Don't be too long," gulped Slimkins. They say the place is haunted." "Ridiculous," cried Slate. "Ghosts don't exist, and I'll stay the night to prove it." Oh, I probably should have said what was actually in the hotel. Slate Tower's luxury hotel. A rooftop sun, terrace, and pool. A suite for personal guests of Mr. Slate. An all-night burger bar. Giant 24-hour disco. And underground parking for 500 cars. We don't exist, eh? Thought Mr. Quiver as he floated upstairs. Minutes later, he gathered the hotel staff together. No one was happy about Slate's plans. "We'll never get any peace in his noisy new hotel," wailed Charlie the waiter. "And where will our ghostly guests go?" asked Elsie the maid. "Slate will have to be frightened off," said Mr. Quiver. "As soon as it gets dark, we'll start haunting." Slate was climbing the rickety stairs to bed when Mr. Quiver appeared in front of him. "Whoa, be gone from Shiverham Hall." Slate looked a little surprised, but then he shrugged. "Out of my way, potato head," he shouted. Okay. Mr. Quiver had never been so insulted in his life, or his death. But the ghosts weren't finished yet. As Slate brushed his teeth, Igor the porter popped up from through the plug hole. "Yeah, another stupid spook." The staff didn't give up. That night, Slate was visited by a stream of ghosts. Elsie brought the bedsheets to life. Charlie rattled a ghostly tea tray next to Slate's pillows. Cora the cook sent possessed pots flying through the air. They probably could have picked a better time because he was sleeping during that time, but oh well. Even the hotel guests tried to put the shivers up the unwelcome visitor. Sir Gauntlet showed off his battle scars, in which he was impaled through the chest. A great imagery for kids. Lord Doublet lost his heads, again with fascinating imagery for little kids. And Miss Gauntlet, the wailing lady, moaned the entire night. You might want to have picked a better term than moaned, because that just leaves an entirely different kind of connotation. I don't know English. But none of them could raise a single goosebump. Next morning, Mr. Quiver listened in on Slate's meeting with Slimkins. "You were right," said Slate. "This place is full of ghosts." Really?" stuttered Slimkins, nervously. "So you'll forget your plans?" "No way," said Slate. "People will pay even more money to stay in a luxury haunted hotel. I'll soon have those spooks hard at work. I'll make a fortune." Within minutes, the ghost's tragic tale appeared on the spirit world wide web. So long, Ghost Online Gazette. So long, Shiverham. Historic hotel to be flattened, staff face slavery to slate. The staff of Shiverham Hall are to become tourist attraction in a new hotel built by Percival Slate. It looked as though the ghost's peaceful life was coming to an end. Next day, the staff watches from the shadows as Slate dreamed of what was to come, bringing a wrecking ball to destroy the hotel, forcing the ghost to carry a tea tray, and I guess trying to scoop up all the money. Who the ship pays a hotel with coins? Yet suddenly, a spooky figure appeared from nowhere. "Yoo-hoo!" she cried. "Aha!" said Slate. "Another spook, and a very ugly one. Don't you recognize me, Percy?" said the ghost. "It's me, your great Aunt Mabel. Let Auntie give you a big, nice kiss." "Huh?" Slate's ghostly aunt planted a slobbery, wet kiss on his cheek. Slate's face turned bright red. "I read all about you on the Ghost Gazette magazine website," said Mabel. "So I've decided to come and live in your lovely new hotel." "Live here? But... I'll look after you, Percy," cried Mabel. "And I'll feed you up my special cabbage soup, and I'll make sure you get a bath and a big kiss every bedtime." Slate had been terrified of his aunt when she was alive, and now she was even scarier. "I've changed my mind," he stammered, tore up his plans, and ran. All the ghosts cheered. Mr. Quiver approached Great Aunt Mabel and bowed. "Thank you, madame," he said. "Please, stay as our guest for as long as you want, for free." The end. That was fun. I've been streaming for a while. 3 hours of this. What fun. I think it's about time I get to bed myself, though. ASMR is a lot of fun. I think I'd like to do it again sometime. But to everyone who has joined me on this storytelling adventure, thank you so much. And I don't know what I'm going to be streaming next. Probably not going to be ASMR. But, and frankly, I'm probably just talking to people who are watching the VOD right now, because I hope my bedtime stories helped a couple of you fall asleep. That's kind of the whole point of ASMR, isn't it? Or to relax. But I was doing bedtime stories. I still got stories in this book. I can read some of them next time, and I have another book that I could read too. You know, I could also do. I have some My Weird School books. I could read those as well. All right, but for now, thank you guys so much for tuning in to my little first ASMR stream. I'm glad. I'm reading the the chat, and I'm glad that you guys seem to enjoy it. I'll see you guys next time. Ciao for now. I don't think I'm gonna... Yeah, I'm not gonna rate anyone today. So, yep. Green is Emerald here. Ciao for now. I need a stream ending scream.